Chapter 4105. The disciples of the Nangong clan had already gathered and were on standby. Since the disciples of the 8 powerhouses were all present, there was nothing more to be said. Ji Tianqing's next step of the plan could begin. Hence, after Ji Tianqing received Nangong Buhua's report, he immediately sent out a message and gave out an order. Order, Deputy Alliance Leader Nangong Buhua to lead the Lan clan, War God clan, Xia clan, Shimi Cave and Jiang clan to battle immediately. With Yanshu Cave as the boundary, sweep across the regions to the south and eliminate the targets on the death list. Also, make the lords of the region submit and swear to surrender. Those who do not surrender will be killed without mercy. The first message was sent to Nangong Buhua and also to the 5 ancient clans. The content was clear and the mission was simple too. At the end of the message, there was an oath of surrender. It was still 1,000 words long and was an improved version of the Heaven Dao Oath. Ji Tianqing asked Nangong Buhua to lead the 5 ancient clans to the south of Yanshu Cave to eliminate the experts and powerhouses on the death list and force the lords of the regions to surrender. When the alliance was first formed, Nangong Buhua had asked Ji Tianqing if he wanted to kill the lords of the regions. Ji Tianqing had said that if the lords of the regions were sensible, he could spare their lives. After all, his goal was to conquer the entire boundless heaven continent and subdue all the lords of the regions, not to kill all of them. After giving the order to Nangong Buhua, Ji Tianqing took out a communication jade slip and sent a message to the leaders of the Feng clan, 100 Smelting Ancient Sect and Yuchi clan. Set off immediately and sweep across the regions to the north of Yanshu Cave. Eliminate the targets on the death list and make the lords of the regions submit and swear to surrender. Those who do not surrender will be killed without mercy. The message was sent to the 2 ancient clans and 100 Smelting Ancient Sect. After the 2 clan leaders and Su Balian received the order, they did not dare to slack off. From everyone's point of view, the regions to the south of Yanshu Cave did not have any important figures or peak divine kings guarding them. Asking Nangong Buhua to lead the 5 forces to sweep the area seemed like a waste of talent. The area to the north of Yanshu's grotto heaven was even wider. There were many strong cultivators, and the imperial tutor was in charge of the Dark Night region. That was the lair of the Azura God Emperor. In the end, only the Phoenix clan, the 100 Refinements Ancient Sect, and the Yuchi clan went. No matter how he looked at it, it seemed like he was overestimating himself and was courting death. However, after Ji Tianqing's order was relayed back to Yanshu's cave, all the forces accepted the order gladly and began to act immediately. No one felt that it was inappropriate, and no one objected to Ji Tianqing's decision. Firstly, the mission given by the Nangong clan and the other 5 forces was very easy, so they naturally wouldn't resist. As for the Phoenix clan, 100 Refinements Ancient Sect, and Yuchi clan, they felt that this task was extremely difficult and heavy, but they did not object. Because the person who led them on this mission was Ji Tianqing. In the eyes of Nangong Buhua and the 8 forces, Ji Tianqing was a peerless expert who could fight against millions of division masters. As long as he was around, the imperial tutor, strong cultivators were nothing to fear. When the Phoenix clan, Yuchi clan, and 100 Refinements Ancient Sect left Yanshu's grotto heaven, they unanimously decided to make Qingfeng region their first target after a short discussion. Qingfeng region was located in the north of Yanshu's grotto heaven, so it was the closest. Ever since the Kenshin established the rebel alliance, all kinds of news were flying around. The entire boundless heaven continent was abuzz with discussions. All the region masters were restless, and everyone was anxious. Only Qingfeng region was peaceful. There were no drastic actions, and there were no movements of people or troops. It was even difficult to guess what the region master of Qingfeng region was thinking based on the movements of Qingfeng region. Was he loyal to the Azura God Emperor, or was he leaning towards the Kenshin? No one knew. Therefore, the 3 forces made Qingfeng region their first target. They wanted to get off to a good start and hope for good luck. At least the region master of Qingfeng region was not a loyal supporter of the Azura God Emperor, so he might not resist much. When the 3,000 disciples of the Phoenix clan, Wuxia clan, and 100 Refinements ancient sect rushed to Qingfeng region, they also sent a message to Ji Tianqing to report the situation. After Ji Tianqing received the news, he immediately sent a message to the Divine Phoenix clan leader. I will be waiting for you at Changshan region in 6 days. After sending the message, Ji Tianqing said to the White Dragon, speed up and head south to Jiohe region. The White Dragon did not have any questions. He immediately steered the god-slaying battleship to speed up to the target. However, no one knew that Ji Tianqing would make such a decision. The three forces were going to attack Qingfeng region. He had agreed to meet them at Changshan region in 6 days. However, he asked the White Dragon to steer the god-slaying battleship to Jiohe region. What did this mean? It meant that he had already guessed the result. It would not be difficult for the three forces to subdue the region master of Qingfeng region. Therefore, he had to subdue the region master of Jiohe region alone in 6 days. He also had to rush to Changshan region. He was saving time by splitting up with the three forces and advancing side by side. If the three forces were to find out about this, who knew what their reactions would be? 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. The Phoenix clan, Wuxia clan, and 100 Refinements ancient sect each set up a battleship and entered the central region of Qingfeng region. These 3 battleships were all king grade upper grade, and they were equipped with many defensive and offensive formations. They were the fruits of the efforts of the three forces. Along the way, they did not encounter any danger or ambush. It was a peaceful journey. However, when they entered the central region of Qingfeng region and approached the Qingfeng region master's cave residence, they slowed down and concealed their tracks and auras. At first, the Divine Phoenix clan leader suggested that they attack the Qingfeng region master's cave residence openly to show the power of the rebel alliance. However, the Wuxia clan and 100 Refinements ancient sect strongly disagreed. They thought that it was too risky. If they were ambushed and attacked by the Qingfeng region master in advance, they would suffer great losses. It would be too embarrassing. This was their first operation. They would rather not be dazzling than make a fool of themselves. Therefore, the 3 battleships chose to hide their auras and keep a low profile. Finally, in the afternoon, the 3 battleships arrived outside the Qingfeng region master's cave residence. They observed for a while and confirmed that the defense of the cave residence was not strong, so they decided to launch a surprise attack. After a round of fighting, more than 30 guards were killed and more than 60 were injured. The remaining 100 or so guards covered the 60 or so wounded and retreated into the Immortal's cave. The experts of the three forces appeared one after another and forcefully broke the defense array of the cave residence. They rushed in with great momentum. What they did not expect was that when they showed their flags and rushed into the cave residence, they did not encounter any large-scale resistance. They easily killed their way to the core of the cave residence and surrounded the Qingfeng region master's cave residence. They had no choice. He was just a region master and a 7th heaven realm high-level god king. The forces under him were limited. Even if the Qingfeng region master resisted with all his strength, he could not block the attacks of the three forces. Chapter 4106. The three forces had thought that the territorial lord would put up a symbolic resistance. At the very least, he would lead the soldiers to charge a few times and sacrifice some soldiers to show his loyalty to the Shura god emperor. Then, he would choose to surrender, saying that the enemy was too powerful and he couldn't let his soldiers die in vain. That way, he could avoid too many casualties and preserve the strength of the territorial lord. At the same time, he could win the reputation of caring for his soldiers. Why not? But what the three forces didn't expect was, when they arrived at the residence of the precinct lord of Light Wind, the door to the magnificent palace opened. Hundreds of armored guards stood outside the residence, but they all maintained a dignified posture and didn't draw their swords to fight the enemy. When the gate of the palace opened, 2 messenger guards walked out of the main hall and arrived in front of the 3 forces. After bowing respectfully, the 2 messenger guards said that the territorial lord invited the leaders of the 3 forces in for a talk. Such a scene caused the leaders of the 3 forces to be stunned. They were somewhat baffled. They looked at each other and thought to themselves, "What's going on? We're here to attack the territorial lord." Not only did he not resist, but he even opened the door to welcome us. The territorial lord surrendered without a fight? That's too unbelievable. He must be up to something. The 3 leaders felt that something was wrong and suspected that the territorial lord was up to something. Therefore, the 3 of them hesitated to enter the main hall. It wasn't until the 2 messenger guards urged them that the 3 of them said that they wanted to enter with the elders. Unexpectedly, the 2 messenger guards had a serious expression and solemn tone as they said that the region lord had instructed that only the 3 leaders were allowed to enter. The 3 leaders were conflicted. They all thought that the territorial lord was up to something. Perhaps the territorial lord had set up a trap in the main hall and was waiting for them to walk into it. In the end, the 2 messengers couldn't stand it any longer and mocked the 3 leaders with a few words. The Divine Phoenix clan leader, Wuxia clan leader, and Su Balian were embarrassed and angry. But then they thought about it. They represented the rebel alliance, and the Kenshin was behind the rebel alliance. If that was the case, it would be reasonable for the territorial lord of Light Wind to surrender. As for not allowing others to enter, it was probably because he was afraid of hurting his reputation. Therefore, the 3 leaders put away their bashful attitude and put on a confident and dignified posture as they walked side by side to the main hall. Of course, on the surface, they appeared to be very confident and dignified, but in reality, the 3 of them were fully alert. If there were any unexpected situations or abnormalities, they would immediately leave the hall. The 3,000 disciples guarding outside the palace would also immediately launch an attack and raze everything within a 10,000-mile radius to the ground. Under such circumstances, the 3 leaders could not think of any reason why the territorial lord of Qingfeng would not surrender. Unless the territorial lord of Light Wind was a loyal follower of the Shura god emperor, he would rather die with everyone than be humiliated and surrender. However, according to their investigation and the clues they had, the territorial lord of Clear Wind was clearly not such a person. Moments later, the 3 leaders entered the main hall and met with the territorial lord of Qingfeng. In the splendid, brightly lit hall, there was only the realm master of Light Wind and a few of his trusted guards. The atmosphere in the main hall was very cold and cheerless. It was exceptionally quiet. After the 2 sides met, they greeted each other hypocritically and exchanged a few pleasantries. The territorial lord of Light Wind, who was dressed like a middle-aged scholar, appeared gentle and elegant. After greeting everyone, he also expressed his respect and admiration for the Kenshin. Hearing this, the 3 leaders' hearts sank back into their stomachs. At least, the territorial lord of Light Wind had made his attitude clear. He was somewhat close to the Kenshin and the rebel alliance. Then, the territorial lord of Light Wind invited the 3 leaders to sit down and drink tea. They could discuss things slowly. Now that the 3 leaders were emboldened, they appeared rather confident and dignified. After all, they represented the face of the rebel alliance and the Kenshin. They could not be too weak. They had to appear strong. The Divine Phoenix clan leader said that the purpose of their visit was very simple. Everyone in the world knew, so the territorial lord of Light Wind did not have to pretend to be ignorant. As for sitting down and drinking tea, that was not necessary. After all, they were only here to inform the territorial lord of Light Wind. They just needed a sentence and an answer from the territorial lord of Light Wind. It was quickly settled. Patriarch Wuxia and Su Balian hurriedly agreed. They talked a lot about how the Shura god emperor's rule was dark and cruel, and how he did not care about the lives of the people. Kenshin was the bright light in the dark night, the hope in the midst of despair. Only the Kenshin cared about the world and the survival of hundreds of millions of people. They were willing to take on the responsibility of saving the people. That was why they established the Rebel Alliance. Naturally, the ancient clans and forces would not sit by and do nothing. They were all moved by the Kenshin's magnanimity and joined the Rebel Alliance. Finally, they brought up the main topic and stated their intentions. They hoped that the territorial Lord of Light Wind would be able to see the bigger picture and prioritize the lives of the people. They hoped that he would stop being stubborn and helping the Shura God Emperor enslave the people. As long as the territorial Lord of Light Wind realized his mistake and was willing to submit to the Kenshin and return to the right path, everyone would be gratified. The people would also be grateful for his good deeds. In fact, the three leaders' intentions were very simple. They hoped that the territorial Lord of Light Wind would surrender to the Rebel Alliance and not become an enemy of the Kenshin. However, they said it in a more euphemistic way, making it sound hot-blooded, righteous, and generous. The territorial Lord of Light Wind had already made up his mind. Previously, he had planned to appease the three leaders first. Then, he would follow his plan and carefully discuss his surrender step by step. However, the three leaders were so impatient and went straight to the point that he could not refuse. He could only show a conflicted, hesitant, and balanced expression. On the one hand, he sincerely expressed that he also cared about the people and did not want to see them suffer. On the other hand, he was, after all, the territorial lord appointed by the Shura God Emperor. How could he be so treacherous? In short, the territorial Lord of Light Wind revealed that he wanted to submit but was unwilling to betray the Shura God Emperor. The three leaders could see clearly that the territorial Lord of Light Wind had made up his mind to surrender. It was just that he had not negotiated the terms and expectations. Seeing this, the three leaders did not beat around the bush and directly explained the pros and cons. If the territorial Lord of Light Wind surrendered, he did not need to do anything. He only needed to read an oath of surrender. After Kenshin took control of the boundless heaven continent, he would still be the territorial Lord of Light Wind. There would be no change. However, if he refused to surrender, there would be no room for negotiation. The Rebel Alliance would definitely kill him and choose another powerhouse to take control of the Qingfeng territory. In any case, there was no shortage of divine king powerhouses on this continent, nor was there a shortage of talents who could take control of a territory. The three leaders' attitudes were very tough. Patriarch Yuchi even took out a divine warship and a jade slip and handed it to the territorial Lord of Light Wind. It was either war or surrender. The territorial Lord of Light Wind, who had been pondering, weighing, and hesitating, was very tactful. He took the jade slip and began to read the oath of surrender. Chapter 4107. The territorial lord's tactfulness left the three leaders a little dumbfounded. They looked at each other and pondered for a moment before understanding the territorial lord's intentions. It was obvious that the realm Lord of Light Wind had known that he would be targeted by the anti-rebels alliance. As the first territorial lord to be attacked by the Rebel Alliance, he would suffer a terrible fate if he resisted. In order to make an example out of him, the anti-rebellious alliance would most likely behead him in public to deter the domain masters of other domains. Unfortunately, his forces were weak and did not have the qualifications to fight against the Rebel Alliance. The imperial tutor could not even protect himself and could not send powerhouses and soldiers to reinforce him. If that was the case, he had to surrender to the Kenshin if he did not want to die. However, surrendering without a backbone would not only bring him no benefits, but he would also be ridiculed by the common people. Therefore, the territorial lord put on a welcoming posture and wanted to sit down and negotiate with the Kenshin. Unexpectedly, the Kenshin did not come. Only three forces came. Moreover, these three leaders represented the Kenshin and the Rebel Alliance, and their attitudes were unusually tough. The territorial lord's plan failed, and he could not fall out with the Rebel Alliance, so he could only admit defeat. Even if the scene of him admitting defeat was not very honorable and would damage his reputation in the future, he could not care less. There were not many people in the hall anyway, so not many people knew about this. However, after he began to read the oath of surrender, he could no longer maintain his calm and poise. The nearly 1,000-word oath of surrender was basically swearing to the heavens, making all kinds of vows, and restricting and binding oneself. The general idea was to admit defeat to the rebel alliance and submit to the Kenshin. He would never betray them and follow the will of the Kenshin as his highest command. If he had any disloyalty, betrayed the Kenshin, or deliberately harmed the interests of the rebel alliance, he would be punished by the heavens. The more the territorial lord read, the more frightened he became. He felt more despair and regret. If he had known that he would have to make such a harsh pledge of surrender, he would have taken the risk and argued for all the benefits and conditions from the rebel alliance. Now, he was already halfway through his pledge of surrender. He was truly in a difficult position. If he gave up on reciting the oath of surrender now, he would have violated the first rule of the oath and would be punished by the heavens. Even if he was lucky enough to escape the wrath of the heavens, the leaders of the three forces would never agree to it. If they really fell out, he would be the one to suffer in the end. At the thought of this, the little bit of unwillingness in the territorial lord's heart disappeared. He obediently finished the oath of surrender, and his entire body lit up with divine light. A wisp of Taoist rhyme actually appeared on top of his head. In the depths of the firmament directly above the palace, there was even a sky full of lightning, and there were bursts of thunderous booms. Clearly, the heavenly Tao had already sensed his oath. Such a phenomenon proved that the vow to the heavenly Tao was valid. From now on, the territorial lord of Qingfeng was officially under Kenshin's command. He could not disobey him in the slightest. Otherwise, the heavenly Tao would punish him before the Kenshin and the rebel alliance did anything. So far, many experts had been forced by Ji Tianqing to make the vow to the heavenly Tao, but none of them had been punished by the heavens. However, Ji Tianqing did not think that the vow to the heavenly Tao was invalid. Those experts who had made the vow to the heavenly Tao would not dare to test the validity of the vow with their own lives. Similarly, when the territorial lord of Qingfeng saw the divine light around him, the Taoist rhyme above his head, and heard the thunderous booms deep in the firmament, he was also very afraid. He could clearly sense the vast and terrifying heavenly might. He no longer dared to have the slightest bit of hope. After the phenomenon of heaven and earth ended, he returned the jade slip to the Divine Phoenix clan leader. The Divine Phoenix clan leader put away the jade slip and saluted him. He said, as the saying goes, a wise man submits to circumstances. Territorial Lord of Qingfeng, you will definitely be grateful for the wise choice you made today. Since the matter has been settled, Territorial Lord of Qingfeng, please go ahead. We will take our leave now. The three leaders did not forget that Ji Tianqing had given them a deadline of 6 days to meet in the Changshan territory. Now that half of the agreed time had passed, they could not delay any longer. They had to get to the Changshan territory as soon as possible. The territorial lord of Qingfeng frowned in confusion. He asked, everyone, does Kenshin not have any instructions for me? He thought that since he had already joined the rebel alliance, Kenshin should at least give him some instructions or assign him some tasks, right? Unexpectedly, the three leaders shook their heads at the same time. The Yuchi clan leader explained, Territorial Lord of Qingfeng, you only need to maintain order in the Qingfeng territory and not let the people suffer from the chaos of war. If there are any tasks that you need to complete, the alliance leader will give you another order. The territorial lord of Qingfeng nodded in understanding and sighed in relief. In fact, he had mixed feelings. He hoped that Kenshin would give him some instructions, which at least meant that Kenshin was paying attention to him and had expectations of him. But he was also afraid that Kenshin would order him to gather elite soldiers and join the battle. In that case, he would have to risk his life fighting against the Shura God Emperor's soldiers. It would be very dangerous. Fortunately, Kenshin did not give him any instructions. He was told to wait for orders, which was the best outcome. Seeing that the three leaders were about to turn and leave, he hurried to catch up with them. He said worriedly, "The three of you, I hope you can keep what happened today a secret. Don't spread it." He did not say the second half of the sentence, but everyone understood what he meant. If word got out, it would damage his image and reputation. The three patriarchs and the sect leader turned around to look at him, revealing a playful smile. Su Balian chuckled. "Territorial Lord of Qingfeng will keep it a secret, and we will not spread it. But we came here in such a grandiose manner, and with so many people watching, this news can't be concealed. It will still spread." The Territorial Lord of Qingfeng waved his hand and said, "It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if the people know the result, as long as they don't know the details." "Of course not," Su Balian answered immediately. The Divine Phoenix clan leader said confidently, "Of course, we won't spread the news. You just need to take care of your trusted guards." The guards who stayed in the hall and witnessed the whole process were the Territorial Lord of Qingfeng's confidants. They would keep their mouths shut. Therefore, the Territorial Lord of Qingfeng's face and reputation would not be damaged too much. The gate of the palace opened. The Territorial Lord of Qingfeng personally saw the two clan leaders and Su Balian out. Soon, more than 3,000 soldiers from the three forces left the Territorial Lord's mansion. They drove 3 divine ships and rushed to the Changshan territory. It would take at least 2.5 days to travel from the Qingfeng territory to the center of the Changshan territory. By the time they found the Territorial Lord's cave residence, the 3-day deadline would be up. Therefore, the 3 divine battleships were operating at full power. They traveled as fast as they could, not daring to delay at all. Chapter 4108. Just as the 3 forces were leaving the Clear Wind Domain Chief's manor, White Dragon's god-slaying warship had just entered the 9 Union region. There was no choice. When Ji Tianqing intercepted Qi Yan in the north, he was very far away from here. If it were the forces of the Rebel Alliance, they would need at least 7 to 8 days to rush back. For the god-slaying warship to reach the 9 Union region in 3 days, its speed was already unparalleled. At the same time, the news of the patrol commander Qi Yan and his 2,000 soldiers being intercepted by Kenshin also spread throughout the boundless heaven continent. After the news spread, it caused a huge sensation in the boundless heaven continent. Various forces, countless experts, and hundreds of millions of citizens were all discussing it enthusiastically. Everyone was shocked and in awe of Kenshin's speed and valiant means. At the same time, the citizens were more favorable and more confident in the Rebel Alliance. Everyone was looking forward to when Kenshin could get rid of the Imperial Tutor and restore peace to the boundless heaven continent. Of course, with the previous incident of Kenshin intercepting Meng Shuai, everyone no longer doubted the authenticity of the news when they heard that Qi Yan was intercepted. The shock that this news brought to everyone also lessened by a lot. In everyone's opinion, Qi Yan was just a 9th-degree realm divine king. Even the peak divine king Meng Shuai was killed by Kenshin, so Qi Yan's death was only natural. The reason why everyone was discussing this matter was not to praise Kenshin's strength or how powerful he was. Instead, everyone felt that Kenshin's whereabouts were erratic, appearing and disappearing unpredictably. It was simply impossible to guard against him. Everyone wanted to know how Kenshin could travel across half of the boundless heaven continent in such a short period of time to hunt targets everywhere. Moreover, how did he know the other party's route? Many people speculated that Kenshin must have mastered an extremely profound technique to deduce the heavens and could see the future. There was also a portion of people who thought that Kenshin must have planted a spy under the Imperial Tutor to find out the inside story. Other than these 2 widely circulated theories, there were many other guesses. However, the vast majority of people still believed in these 2 statements. More people were leaning towards the latter. They felt that the Kenshin was extremely shrewd and had long planted spies under the imperial tutor. After this rumor spread, the imperial tutor's soldiers quickly learned about it, causing them to be anxious and suspicious of each other. Even the imperial tutor was suspicious and vigilant when he heard the news. It was late at night again. In the Nine Union region, in an alternate space hidden in the Sea of Clouds. This alternate space with a radius of more than 100,000 miles couldn't be called a blessed place, but a secret realm. Fortunately, the environment in the mystic realm was very beautiful, and the divine power of heaven and earth was also very abundant. Therefore, since thousands of years ago, this place had been built into the abode of powerhouses. For nearly 1,000 years, the Nine-Region Lord had been living here. There were nearly 100 guards guarding the entrance of the cave, and there were also more than 10,000 soldiers and guards, as well as the Domain Lord's relatives, living inside the cave. In the past few months, even if the Nine-Union region was peaceful and there were no official matters to deal with, the Nine-Union region Lord did not cultivate in isolation. He had been paying attention to the movements of the outside world. Naturally, he knew that the Kenshin had established the rebel alliance, and that Jinshuang and Meng Shuai had been intercepted and killed. Today, he also learned that the patrol commander Qi Yan had been intercepted and killed by the Kenshin. At this time, he was still sitting in the study, discussing important military matters with the deputy region lord and two heavenly generals. Under the dim yellow light, his expression was very serious. His brows were knitted together, and he seemed to have a lot on his mind and was full of worries. Although the deputy region lord and the two heavenly generals were comforting him and persuading him that the Kenshin had intercepted and killed Commander Qi Yan in the north and had not yet returned to Yenshu's Grotto Heaven, the Nine-Union region should be safe. However, the Nine-Union region lord's mood was not relaxed at all, and he did not listen to the three's persuasion. Now, there are only a few powerhouses left under the God Emperor to guard the boundless heaven continent. The imperial tutor is alone, and the people of the 100 territories are divided. I'm afraid that this time, the world is going to be turned upside down. The Nine-Union region lord said earnestly, Kenshin has just killed Qi Yan, and now he has two choices. The first is to continue to the north and assassinate the imperial tutor. As long as he kills the imperial tutor, the 100 territories will be leaderless, and the rebel alliance will win without a fight. However, the imperial tutor's headquarters in the Dark Night region is surrounded by countless powerhouses, and it will be very difficult to assassinate him. The second choice is to return to Yenshu's Grotto Heaven and lead the rebel alliance's army to conquer the various territories. The deputy region lord and the two heavenly generals heard and said in unison, Kenshin will most likely choose the second option to be safe. The Nine-Union region lord nodded and said, that's right. The safest and most honorable way is to lead the rebel alliance to conquer the various territories, and finally encircle and kill the imperial tutor. Therefore, we don't have much time left, and we have to make a choice as soon as possible. The deputy region lord frowned and said, we reported this to the imperial tutor 10 days ago, and asked for reinforcements. However, the imperial tutor's general replied that the various territories are asking for reinforcements, and there is no military force to support us. If the rebel alliance's army comes, we can't stop them with our little power. The Nine-Union region lord nodded slightly and said with a serious face, not only that, I also received a top-secret message today. A few forces of the rebel alliance left Yenshu's Grotto Heaven a few days ago, and they set off in two different directions. What? I thought Kenshin hasn't returned to Yenshu's Grotto Heaven yet. Why did they start earlier? The two heavenly generals were shocked, and their faces changed drastically. The Nine-Union region lord sneered, with Kenshin's prestige, does he need to return to Yenshu's Grotto Heaven personally to give an order? He just needs to send a message and announce an order, who dares to disobey? The deputy region lord and the two heavenly generals were silent, and their hearts were heavy. One of the heavenly generals still had hope, and said, even if the rebel alliance's army has started to move, they will start from the nearest few territories, such as Qinfeng territory and Changshan territory. The rebel alliance will conquer those two territories first, and then attack us, right? This was also the deputy region lord and the other heavenly general's thoughts, and both of them nodded subconsciously. However, the 9 Union region lord sneered and said in a low voice, Kenshin has always been elusive, accurate and fast. The rebel alliance's army set off a few days ago, and I guess Changshan territory and Qingfeng territory have already changed hands. I'm afraid it will be our turn in 2 days at the latest. His tone was so certain that the deputy region lord and the 2 heavenly generals could not refute him, and they froze on the spot. What should we do, region lord? The 9 Union region lord looked at the 3 of them, and said in a serious tone, tonight, everyone must come to a consensus and make a choice. Do we surrender, or do we fight? The deputy region lord and the 2 heavenly generals looked at each other, and their expressions were somewhat bitter. The deputy region lord smiled bitterly and asked, can't we avoid the brunt of the attack, and go into hiding for a few years? The 9 Union region lord sneered, give the 9 Union region to Kenshin. Might as well surrender. Chapter 4109. Of course, running away was unrealistic. There were only 2 choices in front of everyone. Surrender or resist. After a moment of silence, the deputy region master and the 2 heavenly generals raised their heads at the same time and said in unison, then surrender. They all knew their limits. With their strength and manpower, they would be digging their own graves if they really fought the rebel alliance's army. Being loyal to the Azura God Emperor was important, but their own lives were the most important. In any case, the imperial tutor would not send reinforcements at this critical juncture. Even if they chose to surrender, they would not have any psychological burden. They would even feel a sense of relief from the fact that they had been heartless. Seeing that the deputy region master and the 2 heavenly generals had made their choice, the Ninefold region master no longer hesitated. She nodded and said, if that's the case, then surrender. There's no shame in losing to the rebel alliance and surrendering to the Kenshin. It's not just us. I'm afraid no one in the entire boundless heaven continent is a match for the Kenshin. Even the imperial tutor has no chance of winning against the Kenshin. So, it's pardonable for us to surrender, isn't it? Perhaps she was afraid that the atmosphere would be awkward, so the Ninefold region master explained a lot to absolve herself. The deputy region master and the 2 heavenly generals hurriedly nodded in agreement. At first, they were a little ashamed, afraid that the news would spread and they would be laughed at by the people. After hearing the Ninefold region master's words, they felt more at ease. Next, the 4 of them prepared to discuss how to surrender to the rebel alliance, how to negotiate with the other party, and what conditions to put forward. Surrendering was surrendering, but they still had to discuss the conditions that should be discussed and the benefits that should be obtained. However, at this moment, the door of the study suddenly opened. With a soft creak, the door opened as if it had been blown open by a gust of wind. The Ninefold region master, the deputy region master, and the 2 heavenly generals were all shocked and instinctively turned to look at the door. When they entered the study to discuss matters, they had clearly closed the door of the study and activated the defensive formation. Not to mention being blown open by the wind, even if the guards forced the door open, it would not be able to open it. At this moment, the same thought appeared in everyone's minds at the same time. Could it be that a powerhouse broke into the cave residence to assassinate us? But when everyone thought about it, that didn't seem right either. If there really was an expert who came to assassinate us, they would have been discovered long ago. There should also be sounds of fighting outside, that is, unless the person who came is very strong, and the guards and hidden sentries we set up didn't discover him. At the thought of this, the hearts of the 4 divine kings were raised, and they subconsciously took out their divine weapons. At the same time, a white light flashed and the door of the study closed with a bang. The 4 of them were frightened and stood up subconsciously. They only saw a blur in front of their eyes before a figure appeared in the study. It was a handsome young man in a white robe, who exuded an invisible pressure and aura. Even though this young man did not have a trace of killing intent, and his expression and eyes were very calm as he looked at them. However, the four of them were filled with fear. It was as if they had fallen into an ice cellar, and their bodies were cold. Their expressions changed drastically, and their eyes widened in fear. Even their hands began to tremble. Among the four of them, only the Ninefold Region Master was relatively calm. No matter how nervous and frightened he was, at least he didn't lose his composure. Kenshin. After a moment, the four of them calmed down a lot, and the Ninefold Region Master tried to ask. In fact, they had not seen Kenshin with their own eyes, but they had seen Kenshin's portrait and heard many descriptions of Kenshin's appearance. They already had an answer in their hearts. They were 80% sure that the white-robed young man in front of them was Kenshin. However, they still had to ask to confirm the other party's identity. Ji Tianqing did not answer the Ninefold Region Master. Instead, he took out a jade slip and threw it in front of the Ninefold Region Master. He said calmly, "Since you've decided to surrender, then recite the oath of surrender." Seeing his reaction, the Ninefold Region Master and the other three were basically sure that the white-robed young man was Kenshin. At the same time, they also understood that their previous conversation had been heard by Kenshin a long time ago. When they thought of this, the four of them felt even more ashamed and humiliated. Fortunately, other than that sentence, Kenshin did not say anything else, nor did he mock or humiliate them. Kenshin only looked at the Ninefold Region Master quietly and waited patiently. The study was very quiet, and the atmosphere was somewhat awkward and depressing. The Deputy Region Master and the two Divine Generals did not know what to do. They all looked at the Ninefold Region Master and waited for him to make a decision. The Ninefold Region Master looked at the jade slip on the table and hesitated for a moment. However, he did not reach out to take it. He mustered up his courage and looked at Ji Tianqing. He tried to say, "Kenshin, everyone knows that you are very powerful. Naturally, we are no match for you. However, we are the subjects of the Shura God Emperor after all. We cannot surrender to the rebel alliance for no reason. There has to be an explanation." The Ninefold Region Master was still dilly-dallying, thinking about how to phrase it. However, before he could finish speaking, Ji Tianqing interrupted him. Ji Tianqing glanced at him and said coldly, "You want to discuss terms with me?" The Ninefold Region Master was at a loss for words. He did not know how to answer. He also did not expect Kenshin to be so direct. He did not know how to respond. Without waiting for him to answer, Ji Tianqing continued, "You are not qualified to discuss terms with me. There are only two choices in front of you. You can either surrender or die." After saying this, Ji Tianqing released an invisible pressure that enveloped the entire study. Suddenly, the Ninefold Region Master and the others found it difficult to breathe. The circulation of their divine power was also slowed and blocked. A haze of fear covered their hearts. The entire study was sealed off by Ji Tianqing's invisible aura, so they could not call for help. Even if they shouted themselves hoarse, the guards outside the study would not be able to hear them. Moreover, the four of them knew that Kenshin was very powerful. If they desperately called for help, they were afraid that Kenshin would kill them instantly before the guards could come to their rescue. Therefore, the four of them wisely chose to shut up and gave up on the idea of calling for help. After all, they were the most powerful people. It was not realistic to expect the 2,000 to 3,000 divine lords to save them. Looking at the situation before them, Kenshin was certain to defeat them. Moreover, they did not doubt Kenshin's determination and methods at all. Kenshin had killed powerful people like Lian Jinshuang, Qi Yan, and Meng Shuai without batting an eyelid. For small fries like them, if they really angered the sword god, it would be as simple as crushing a few ants. Thinking of this, the Deputy Region Master and the two Divine Generals were a little anxious. They looked at the Ninefold Region Master and used their eyes to tell him to stop hesitating and digging his own grave. Quickly admit defeat and surrender to Kenshin. It would be good for you, good for me, and good for everyone. If we really angered the sword god and casually killed the few of us, then our deaths would be too aggrieved. The Ninefold Region Master saw the meaning in their eyes. His heart was filled with sadness and despair. Helplessly, he held on for less than 10 seconds before bowing his head to Ji Tianqing. Kenshin, please calm down. I admit defeat and surrender to you. Chapter 41:10. The Ninefold Region Master chose to lower his head, admit defeat, and surrender. This meant that he had given up on the illusion of negotiation and abandoned the dignity and reputation of a region master. This was because he understood that the dignity and reputation of a region master were not worth mentioning in the eyes of Kenshin. Moreover, dignity and reputation were insignificant when compared to life. Surviving was the most important thing. He obediently picked up the jade slip and began to recite the oath of surrender in front of Ji Tianqing, the deputy region master, and the two heavenly generals. However, his expression and reaction seemed to be a little sullen. After reading the oath of surrender, not only him, but even the deputy region master and the two heavenly generals felt even more sullen. However, the Ninefold Region Master had already destroyed his wishful thinking and decided to surrender. He would not hesitate anymore. No matter how harsh the contents of the oath of surrender were, he could only bite the bullet and continue reading. The Deputy Region Master and the two heavenly generals felt their scalps tingle and chills run down their spines when they heard the series of oaths to the heavens and all kinds of willing to be punished by the heavens. As for the Ninefold Region Master, while feeling humiliated and indignant, he actually had a different thought. He was thinking that the Qingfeng Region Master and the Changshan Region Master must have also recited the same oath of surrender not long ago, right? He wondered how those two fellows felt when they recited the oath of surrender. Are you also very shocked, sullen, and unwilling to accept this? When he thought of the two region masters being defeated, the Ninefold Region Master was actually not so sad and indignant. He also felt much better. In a short while, he finished reciting the oath of surrender. The Deputy Region Master and the two heavenly generals had just breathed a sigh of relief when they saw the Ninefold Region Master's entire body lit up with five-colored divine light. A wisp of Taoist rhyme appeared above his head. At the same time, in the sky above the study, tens of thousands of lightning bolts lit up, and there was the sound of heavenly thunder. It was obvious that the oath of the heavenly Tao had been established. The Ninefold Region Master could clearly sense that the terrifying heavenly might was enveloping him. It was as if the heavens were watching him all the time. If he dared to have any thoughts of betrayal and violate any of the terms of the oath, he would immediately be punished by the heavens. When this thought flashed through his mind, the Ninefold Region Master shuddered. Although the Deputy Region Master and the two heavenly generals did not understand what was going on, they had a premonition that the matter was very serious. They immediately felt a trace of sympathy for the Ninefold Region Master. A moment later, the phenomenon disappeared. The Nine Region Lord respectfully returned the jade slip to Ji Tianqing. Since he had already surrendered and pledged his allegiance to Kenshin, he no longer harbored any illusions. He respectfully said, "Kenshin-sama, this subordinate has sincerely surrendered. From now on, I will be Lord Kenshin's lackey. If there is anything you need, please do not hesitate to tell me." Ji Tianqing put away the jade slip and said expressionlessly, "Guard the Nine Union region well, and don't let the people suffer the pain of war." In addition, the enslavement of the common people was to be stopped immediately and their freedom restored. "If there is anything else, I will send another order to inform you." After that, Ji Tianqing turned around and pushed open the door of the study, his figure disappearing into the darkness. The Nine Unity Region Master and the other three hurriedly walked to the door of the study and respectfully sent Ji Tianqing off. After Ji Tianqing had disappeared for a long time, the four of them finished their salutes and silently returned to the study. The door of the study closed again. It was also very quiet outside, as if nothing had happened. The four of them were silent for a long time. In order to ease the awkwardness, the deputy region lord said, "I have always heard about how extraordinary Kenshin's demeanor is. After seeing it with my own eyes tonight, the rumors are indeed true." The two heavenly generals hurriedly nodded in agreement and praised, as expected of Kenshin. Not to mention his appearance and temperament, just his pressure and aura alone are superior to that of any god king. In this world, I'm afraid that other than the 5 god emperors, no one can compete with Kenshin. For insignificant characters like us to be able to see Kenshin in person and come out unscathed, that is also an amazing thing. The deputy region lord and the two heavenly generals desperately flattered Kenshin, calling him the most powerful person below the 5 god emperors. Their purpose was to show that their side's surrender to Kenshin was pardonable and understandable. Not to mention that they had to surrender to Kenshin, any other god king would not be able to withstand Kenshin's pressure. Therefore, it was only natural for them to admit defeat, surrender, and recite the humiliating oath of surrender. Sure enough, the Ninefold region lord's expression eased a lot. He stopped talking about this topic and muttered to himself, "I really didn't expect the sword god's speed to be so fast. I just received news today that he had intercepted and killed Commander Qi Yen in the north. As a result, he came to the Ninefold region tonight. Such speed is unparalleled in the world, and no one can match him." The deputy region lord and the two heavenly generals hurriedly nodded in agreement. The Ninefold region lord continued, "I have thought many times about what to do after meeting Kenshin. I did not expect it to be in such a way. Ha! Even admitting defeat and surrendering was done so carelessly. More importantly, Kenshin did not take me seriously at all. He did not even give me any instructions, let alone assign me any tasks." At this point, the Ninefold region lord laughed self-deprecatingly. The deputy region lord hurriedly comforted him and said, "Your Excellency, Kenshin's speed shows that he is very busy. Naturally, he would not waste time. Moreover, it is not just you. The Changshan region lord and the Qingfeng region lord must have received the same treatment. If you don't believe me, you can see what they will do in the future." The two heavenly generals also comforted the Ninefold region lord and said, "Your Excellency, didn't Kenshin assign you a task?" "That's right. Kenshin asked you to save the people of the Ninefold region and return their freedom. This is a great good deed and merit. When the time comes, millions of people will be deeply grateful to you." Hearing this, the Ninefold region lord's eyes lit up, and he was in high spirits. At the very least, he had found something to do and could prove that he was of value. Since he had pledged allegiance to Kenshin, he naturally hoped to make some achievements and win Kenshin's favor. After leaving the Ninefold region lord's cave residence, Ji Tianqing asked Bai Long to drive the deity-slaying battleship to the Changshan region. At the same time, he also sent 2 messages to ask about the Divine Phoenix clan leader, Yuqi clan leader, and Su Bailian's movements, as well as the progress of Nangong Buhua and the others. In less than 15 minutes, the Divine Phoenix clan leader was the first to send back a message. They reported to Ji Tianqing that they had subdued the Qingfeng region lord and forced him to swear the oath of surrender. The process was very smooth. At the moment, they were leaving the Qingfeng region and were on their way to the Changshan region. After a while, Nangong Buhua also sent back a message to report to Ji Tianqing. The 6 forces had already started their operation and had successfully subdued a region lord in the south of Yanchu's cave heaven. The region lord was already mentally prepared and was in awe of Kenshin. Therefore, when Nangong Buhua and the others found the region lord, they did not encounter any strong resistance. The region lord naturally surrendered. Chapter 41:11. Up until now, the rebel alliance had split into 3 operations and everything was going smoothly. The main reason was that the few territories they attacked were all around Yanchu's grotto heaven. These territorial rulers had expected that the rebel alliance would attack them first. Therefore, 10 days ago, they had sent a message to the imperial tutor asking for help. Unfortunately, the imperial tutor could not even take care of himself. He was busy deploying his troops to carry out his plan. How could he spare the manpower to help the territories? When the territorial rulers saw that the imperial tutor was not helping, they had the thought that they did not have to be loyal to the imperial tutor and the Azura god emperor. Since you don't care about our lives, you have nothing to complain about when we surrender and betray you. With this thought in mind, when the rebel alliance came knocking on their door, they surrendered without hesitation. Ji Tianqing encouraged Nangong Buhua and the others and asked them to continue with the original plan and not be careless. Nangong Buhua sent a message back saying that he would be cautious and was rushing to the next territory. One day later, Ji Tianqing was the first to arrive at the Changshan territory. The Phoenix tribe, Wuxia tribe, and 100 Refinement Ancient sect had yet to enter the Changshan territory. Even if they rushed over as fast as they could, it would still take them 1.5 days to meet up with Ji Tianqing. Seeing this, Ji Tianqing decisively went to the Changshan territory ruler's cave residence alone to force him to surrender. He sent a message to the Phoenix tribe, Wuxia tribe, and 100 Refinement Ancient sect, saying that he had already subdued the Ninefold territory ruler and that they did not need to rush to the Changshan territory. When the Divine Phoenix tribe leader and the others received the message, they were shocked and could not believe it. A few days ago, Ji Tianqing was still trying to kill Qi Yan in the north. Yesterday, Ji Tianqing had already subdued the Ninefold territory ruler. Now, before they could reach the Changshan territory, Ji Tianqing had already arrived. Not to mention the fact that Ji Tianqing alone had the confidence to subdue the Changshan territorial lord, just his unparalleled speed was enough to stun everyone. The god kings and disciples of the three forces were completely convinced of Ji Tianqing's power and felt even more reverence for him. With regards to Ji Tianqing's orders, they did not dare to delay in the slightest. They hurriedly changed their direction and headed to the next area. They only had 3 divine warships and 3,000 soldiers. However, with their previous experience and the might of the Rebel Alliance and the Kenshin, they were fearless. This time, they were all full of energy. They wanted to rush to the next domain as quickly as possible and subdue the domain lord. They also wanted the sword god to look at them in a different light and recognize their efficiency. For the same reason, Nangong Buhua and the others who were marching on the other side had the same thought. Ji Tianqing didn't think too much about it. He stayed in the distorted spacetime and meditated, nourishing his foundation of the divine path and continuing to refine the godhead fragments of the god kings. Last time, he still had more than 40 godhead fragments to refine. After killing Qi Yan, he obtained another 40 godhead fragments. He would probably be busy refining those godhead fragments for a long time. The god-slaying battleship was super fast. It took less than a day to cover a distance that a king-level divine warship would take 2 days to cover. A day later, the god-slaying battleship arrived at the Changshan territory and found the Changshan territorial lord's residence. It was a group of palaces floating in the sea of clouds. There were many divine arrays protecting it, as well as a large group of elite guards and many god kings. At this time, Ji Tianqing had been in seclusion in the distorted spacetime for 50 days and refined another 10 godhead fragments. Even though he still had more than 70 godhead fragments, he could only put them aside and deal with the Changshan territorial lord first. The night was dark, and there were few stars in the night sky. At the peak of the white sea of clouds, the majestic palaces flickered with golden light in the dark night. It was very dazzling. Ji Tianqing put away the god-slaying battleship when he was still tens of thousands of miles away. He stepped through the sea of clouds alone, silently approaching the group of palaces. He concealed his whereabouts and aura. Even when he arrived at the square outside the palaces, the patrolling guards did not notice him. The Changshan territorial lord was probably the same as the other territorial lords. He had expected that the rebel alliance would attack him. Therefore, the defense of the palaces was very tight. Even the number of patrolling guards was higher than usual. The defensive formations all over the palace complex were also in an activated state, and they could be considered to be on full alert. However, these did not pose a threat to Ji Tianqing. They also could not stop him from sneaking into the palaces. He first released his divine sense and used his divine sense to investigate the situation in the palaces. After about 100 breaths, he had a sufficient understanding of the situation in the palaces. There were more than 15,000 people living in the palaces. Among them, there were more than 4,000 monarch god experts. Most of them were guards. There were more than 10 god-king experts. Among them, there was only one 6th heaven realm god-king. Ji Tianqing locked onto the 6th heaven realm god-king's aura. He carefully compared it with the Changshan territorial lord's information and confirmed that he was the Changshan territorial lord. Before he came, he was worried that the Changshan territorial lord would make a mistake and run away. If that was the case, it would be troublesome for him to subdue the Changshan territorial lord. Fortunately, the Changshan territorial lord did not do such a stupid thing. This saved Ji Tianqing a lot of time and effort. He remained invisible and quietly passed through several layers of defensive arrays. He sneaked into the palaces. Along the way, he successfully avoided many patrolling guards and more than 10 hidden sentries. He went straight into the depths of the palaces. In the middle of the palaces, the most majestic palace was the Changshan territorial lord's residence. It was also the main hall where he usually held meetings. However, the Changshan territorial lord was very cautious. He did not live there. Instead, he hid in an inconspicuous palace in the depths of the palaces. At this moment, the Changshan territorial lord was in the study, discussing matters with a few of his trusted generals. He had 5 trusted subordinates. Other than the deputy territorial lord, there were 3 god generals and a governor. It was not known what they were discussing in low voices. Everyone's expression was very solemn. The dim light in the study shone on the Changshan territorial lord's face. It made him frown and ponder. It made him look even more haggard. Perhaps it was because they were discussing an important issue, the few of them fell silent, looking helpless and dejected. At this moment, Ji Tianqing was like a transparent ghost. He passed through the layers of barriers and hidden sentries and arrived outside the study. He stopped to listen for a moment. When he saw that there was no movement in the study, he knew that the Changshan territorial lord and the others had not made up their minds. However, he did not want to waste any time. He raised his hand and shot out a few rays of divine light. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. In a split second, the 4 guards who were 10 steps away were knocked unconscious by the divine light. Their bodies fell slowly. They were about to hit the ground, making a loud noise. However, before they fell, Ji Tianqing waved his hand and shot out a vast amount of divine power. It formed a light shield with a radius of 1,000 feet and covered the entire palace. Even if the 4 guards fell to the ground and made muffled thuds, it would not alarm the people outside the light shield. However, the Changshan territorial lord and the others in the study were immediately alarmed. Chapter 41:12. The Changshan territorial lord and the others were startled when they heard the commotion outside the study and sensed the fluctuation of divine power. Their expressions changed at the same time. Without any hesitation, they drew out their divine weapons and held them in their hands. They then let out a furious roar. "Who's there?" As soon as they roared, they sensed an invisible, majestic divine power sealing off the entire palace. Then, they heard the thuds of 4 guards falling to the ground. The few divine kings were all people with abundant experience and immediately realized that there was a powerful enemy attacking. They spread out and occupied every corner of the study. They stared at the door warily. No one opened the door of the study to avoid being attacked by a powerful enemy. They all stared at the door of the study, secretly accumulating their divine power, ready to unleash a thunderous attack at any moment. After 2 short breaths, the door of the study was indeed pushed open. A white figure appeared at the door and stepped into the study calmly. The Changshan territorial lord and the others immediately focused on the white-robed young man. When the crowd saw his appearance clearly and sensed his divine power, aura and pressure, their expressions changed instantly. They were extremely shocked and terrified. Although they had never seen Kenshin with their own eyes, they knew that the white-robed young man was Kenshin the moment they saw him. They were just discussing how to deal with the Rebel Alliance's upcoming attack, how to face Kenshin and negotiate with Kenshin. They did not expect that Kenshin would come to them before they could come to a conclusion. He came so quickly and so suddenly that they were caught off guard. For a moment, the Changshan territorial lord and the others were stunned. They stared blankly as Kenshin walked into the study. They did not make a sound or move. It was not until Kenshin walked to the large desk and sat down that the Changshan territorial lord and the others came back to their senses. They looked at each other and saw the panic and nervousness in each other's eyes, as well as deep worry. Ji Tianqing sat down casually. He glanced at everyone indifferently and finally fixed his gaze on the Changshan territorial lord. "What, aren't you going to say hello to me?" This was unreasonable. He was the one who had barged into the Changshan territorial lord's residence in the middle of the night, uninvited, and barged into his study. Instead of greeting the other party, he asked the other party to greet him. They had gone too far. But who was he? He's a Kenshin. The Changshan domain lord and the others didn't find anything wrong with it, nor did they get angry over it. The main thing was that he did not dare to do so. Cough cough. No, I am the Changshan territorial lord. Greetings to Lord Kenshin. The Changshan territorial governor quickly calmed himself down and tried his best to remain calm. He bowed solemnly. The deputy domain master, 3 divine generals, and 1 governor also came to their senses. They hurriedly followed the example of the Changshan domain master and bowed to Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing nodded slightly to express his satisfaction. Without further ado, he took out a jade slip and threw it in front of the Changshan territorial lord. "Since you are already discussing the matter of surrendering, make a decision now. I'll give you 10 breaths of time. Once you've made up your mind, you can recite the oath of surrender. If you haven't thought it through, then don't think about it anymore." Hearing the last sentence, the Changshan territorial lord and the others trembled. Fear flashed in their eyes. Although the sword god said it casually, there was no killing intent. But everyone felt a chill down their spines. They felt terrified and helpless from the bottom of their hearts. Because they knew that Kenshin's attitude was so calm because Kenshin had never regarded them as opponents. Everyone was in the same study. If Kenshin wanted to kill them, it would be as easy as lifting a finger. Therefore, they only had 2 choices. Either submit or die. The Changshan territorial lord and the others were never impassioned, hot-blooded men who were brave enough to sacrifice themselves. On the contrary, old foxes like them, who had lived for more than 10,000 years, cherished their lives more than anyone else. The 2 choices that Ji Tianqing threw out, in fact, did not seem like a choice to them. They already had an answer. Naturally, they would choose to admit defeat and surrender to save their lives. However, the Changshan territorial lord frowned and thought for a moment. He mustered his courage and asked, "Lord Kenshin, we admire your courage to rise in rebellion for the sake of the people of the boundless heaven continent. But after all, I am a subject of the Azura God Emperor. If you don't give me a suitable price, it will be very difficult for me to surrender just like that." Ji Tianqing was slightly surprised. He did not expect the Changshan territorial lord to be so bold and thick-skinned to speak so directly. Without waiting for the Changshan territorial lord to finish speaking, he sneered and said indifferently, "Price? Surrender and you will keep your life. You will still be the Changshan territorial lord in the future. If you don't, you will die immediately. Is that suitable?" As his voice fell, an invisible murderous aura spread throughout the study. Immediately, the Changshan territorial lord, the deputy territorial lord, the 3 divine generals, and the governor all shuddered. Fear filled their eyes. At that moment, they even felt the aura of death descending. They had long known that Kenshin was very powerful, but this was the first time they experienced that a divine king could be so powerful that they could not even muster the will to resist. They had no doubt that if Kenshin attacked, they would not even have the chance to call for help or escape. They would die instantly. Since the difference in strength between the two sides was so great, what right did they have to bargain with Kenshin? At that thought, the Changshan territorial lord did not waste any more time. He quickly took the jade slip with both hands and began to read the oath of surrender. The 1,000-word oath of surrender stunned the Changshan territorial lord. After he finished reading the first oath, his expression changed drastically. His eyes were filled with disbelief and humiliation. The deputy territorial lord, the 3 divine generals, and the governor also felt that the situation was not right. They all wanted to see the contents of the jade slip to see what the oath of surrender was. Ji Tianqing looked coldly at the Changshan territorial lord. An invisible pressure enveloped him. The Changshan territorial lord could not back down. After swallowing a few times, he could only force himself to continue reading. The result was predictable. As oath after oath appeared, his expression became uglier and uglier. He was sweating profusely. The deputy territorial lord, the 3 divine generals, and the governor were also shocked and aggrieved. Their hearts were filled with unwillingness. In the end, when the Changshan territorial lord finished reading the oath of surrender, his heart was dead. He was filled with despair. His entire body lit up with 5-colored divine light. A wisp of Taoist rhyme appeared above his head. Deep in the sky above the study, muffled thunder rumbled. The oath of the heavenly Tao had been completed. The Changshan territorial lord also sensed the mighty heavenly Tao's might, forming an invisible connection with him. He realized that the heavenly Tao had witnessed those oaths. If he dared to violate any of the oaths, he would be punished by the heavens. In other words, Kenshin did not have to monitor him or pay attention to him. He had to maintain his loyalty to Kenshin because of the heavenly Tao's supervision and deterrence. Such an outcome left only one thought in the Changshan territorial lord's mind. Too vicious, too ruthless. Chapter 41:13. The Changshan territorial lord stood rooted to the ground, a little dazed. Although he had surrendered to Ji Tianqing, he did not flatter him, nor did he ask for Ji Tianqing's instructions. She just stood there like that, as if she had nothing left to live for. Ji Tianqing put away the jade slip, glanced at him, and said expressionlessly, "Other than being loyal to me, you haven't changed at all. You don't have to look like you're seeking death. From now on, all the people of the Changshan territory will be free, and their enslavement will be stopped. Other than that, if I have any tasks for you, I will send you an order." After that, Ji Tianqing got up and left the study, disappearing into the night. The Changshan territorial lord was still rooted to the ground. The deputy territorial lord, the 3 divine generals, and the governor hurried to the door of the study, bowed to the night sky, and respectfully sent Ji Tianqing off. After a long time, when Ji Tianqing was far away, the 4 of them returned to the study. The Changshan territorial lord had also come to his senses, and he sat on the chair with a dejected expression. Everyone hurried to comfort him and enlighten him. "Territorial lord, actually, we all support your decision. It's no big deal to surrender to Kenshin. If you don't believe me, just watch. The territorial lords of the surrounding territories will definitely surrender." "That's right. Even the imperial tutor may not be Kenshin's match. It's normal for us to surrender. Territorial lord, you chose to surrender for the sake of the people of the Changshan territory. The people will definitely understand you." After hearing everyone's words of comfort, the Changshan territorial lord felt much better. He said in a low voice, "I understand what you're saying. I don't care about these things. I just feel that I haven't reaped any benefits, and I've surrendered in such a muddle-headed manner. It's really sullen. Moreover, I've made so many oaths, and I'm still under the supervision of the heavenly Tao. From now on, I can only be loyal to Kenshin. There are no other choices or possibilities. If the Sword God's rebellion fails, I can only accompany him in death. It turned out that the reason why the Changshan domain master felt aggrieved and helpless was that he had lost his freedom and choice. If he could remain neutral, he could wait for the right price and obtain more benefits in the future. However, due to his vow to the heavenly Tao, he could only be loyal to Kenshin, so there was no possibility of that happening. The deputy region master, the 3 heavenly generals, and the governor looked at each other and tried to comfort him. Since there is no other choice, we can only pray that Kenshin succeeds. That's right. Looking at the current situation, as long as the Azura God Emperor doesn't return, Kenshin sweeping through the entire boundless heaven continent is practically a done deal. The few of them whispered in the study for a while. Not long after, the Changshan domain lord finally untied the knot in his heart and gradually calmed down. Next, he had to pull himself together and carry out the task given to him by Ji Tianqing. Restoring the freedom of all the citizens of the Long Mountain region was a huge project that could not be completed overnight. Ji Tianqing left the residence of the Changshan domain master. Bai Long steered the deity-slaying battleship and flew towards the northeast at lightning speed. He headed towards the next region to meet up with the Divine Phoenix clan leader and the rest. Although Ji Tianqing departed a day later, the distance was still slightly further. However, the speed of the deity-slaying battleship ensured that he and the Divine Phoenix clan leader and the rest would arrive at their destination at the same time. The next morning, the deity-slaying battleship was still on its way. A piece of news that came out of nowhere began to spread around Yenshu's heavenly abode. The rebel alliance led by Kenshin has begun their operation. In just a few days, Qingfeng, Zhouhe, and the other regions have been conquered by the rebel alliance. All the domain masters have surrendered. It was just a simple piece of news, but after it spread, it had an explosive effect and caused a huge sensation. In just a few hours, the news seemed to have grown wings and spread to the surrounding regions. Not only the major forces and empires, but also many citizens were talking about it. With all their previous experiences, the citizens had high hopes for the Kenshin Rebel Alliance. Even when they heard this shocking news, they did not think it was fake. Instead, they believed it to be true. Soon, the news was confirmed in Qingfeng, Zhouhe, and the other regions. After all, those 2 regions were the first to be conquered. The domain masters had followed Ji Tianqing's orders and issued orders to gradually restore the citizens' freedom. For nearly 1,000 years, the citizens had been under the dark rule of the Azura God Emperor. They had been oppressed and enslaved. If the Kenshin had not conquered those few regions, how could the domain masters issue orders to restore the citizens' freedom and stop their oppression and enslavement? After the news was confirmed, it spread even faster. With those few regions as the center, the news quickly spread in all directions. It had the potential to engulf the entire boundless heaven continent. The citizens were in an uproar. They cheered and celebrated the Kenshin and the Rebel Alliance. They treated the Kenshin as their saviors, their saviors. A day later, more than 40 regions and half of the boundless heaven continent knew about this news. Thus, countless domain masters were in a state of panic. Hundreds of millions of citizens were filled with excitement and anticipation. They looked forward to the arrival of the Rebel Alliance's powerhouses. They also wanted the citizens of Qingfeng, Zhouhe, and the other regions to regain their freedom as soon as possible and no longer be oppressed and enslaved. Of course, when this news spread across half of the continent, the imperial tutor in the Dark Night region in the far north also received the news. The news he received was far more detailed than the rumors outside. Not only did Qingfeng, Zhouhe, and the other regions surrender, but the domain masters also surrendered very straightforwardly. They did not discuss any conditions with the Kenshin and directly surrendered. When he heard this news, the imperial tutor was so angry that his lungs almost exploded. His entire body erupted with soaring killing intent. He really wanted to teleport to Qingfeng, Johua, and the other regions and cut those traitorous domain masters into pieces. Only then could he vent the hatred in his heart. Damn bastards! You are all domain masters personally conferred by His Holiness the God Emperor. If not for His Holiness the God Emperor's support, how could you have such honorable positions? And now, you don't want to serve His Holiness the God Emperor and be loyal to the God Emperor. When the Kenshin attacked, you actually surrendered without any backbone. How infuriating! The protectors and generals hurriedly persuaded the imperial tutor to calm down and comforted him for a long time. When the imperial tutor's emotions slowly calmed down, the protectors and generals said worriedly, "Imperial tutor, we can't go on like this. The rebel alliance will split into two groups and attack the various regions, one from the south and one from the north. If the various regions don't unite, no one will be a match for the Kenshin alliance. Imperial tutor, you also know that those domain masters are greedy for life and afraid of death. Their forces are weak and they can't fight against the Kenshin alliance. They can only choose to surrender. Imperial tutor, you have to quickly come up with an idea. We can't let the Kenshin conquer the various regions one by one." Under everyone's urging, the imperial tutor considered for a moment and ordered, "I don't have a good idea. I can only take advantage of this. Immediately issue an edict and summon all the domain masters to the Dark Night region." Chapter 41:14. Everyone knew that it was easy to be defeated one by one if hundreds of area masters were to spread out and guard their own territories. Not to mention the Kenshin, even if a few of the rebel alliance's forces went, those area masters would not be able to resist. In order to survive, it was inevitable to admit defeat and surrender. Thus, the imperial tutor could only think of this idea that could not be considered a solution. "Aren't you going to subdue those area masters one by one? Then I'll issue an order and gather all the area masters to the Dark Night area to form an inescapable trap and ambush." The Kenshin and the Rebel Alliance's 9 forces would be empty-handed and they arrived at the various territories. They could not subdue those area masters, but they could not attack ordinary citizens, right? Moreover, time did not allow them to appoint a new area master to take over those territories. After all, taking charge of a territory was not something that could be done in a short period of time. On the other hand, manpower was also a big problem. If the Rebel Alliance had to send out a group of godly kings and godly lords every time they attacked a territory to occupy a certain territory, then it would not be long before the Rebel Alliance had no one to use. In any case, there were hundreds of territories in the boundless heaven continent. Even if the Rebel Alliance occupied 50 territories, the imperial tutor would not panic. Now, the Rebel Alliance had the initiative and attacked everywhere. The imperial tutor and the 100 area masters could only passively defend. If the Rebel Alliance occupied half of the continent, then the initiative would be handed to the imperial tutor. He could take the initiative to attack and destroy the Rebel Alliance's forces one by one. In short, the cheap trick he came up with was indeed effective. The protectors and generals thought for a moment and understood the imperial tutor's intention. They all nodded in agreement. Thus, the 2 protectors quickly drafted an edict and issued it as soon as possible. At the same time, Ji Tianqing boarded the god-slaying battleship and met up with the Divine Phoenix clan leader and the others. At this point, the 9 forces of the Rebel Alliance and Ji Tianqing officially split up and began their journey. Both sides advanced side by side, and they subdued 4 region lords in a short period of a few days with an unstoppable momentum. Wherever they went, they found the domain lords of the various domains and encountered almost no resistance. Those domain lords would usually put up a symbolic resistance, and after a few dozen of their subordinates were killed or injured, they would declare their defeat and surrender. Before surrendering, They had fantasized about negotiating terms with the Rebel Alliance and asking for some benefits. However, the Rebel Alliance's attitude was very unyielding. They directly threw out an oath of surrender and told them to read it. After those domain lords finished their oaths of surrender, they were like frosted eggplants, listless and almost shut themselves up. It couldn't be helped. This was also the first time they had come into contact with this kind of heavenly Tao oath. The content of the oath, which was close to 1,000 words, shocked them. After the oath was made, the phenomenon of heaven and earth, as well as the invisible pressure of the heavenly Tao, caused them to feel fear and terror. These domain lords were somewhat regretful, but there was nothing they could do. They could only accept their fate. The reason why these few domain lords tactfully surrendered was because of the news that spread throughout the entire boundless heaven continent during this period of time. Everyone knew that the Rebel Alliance had split into two groups, the North and the South, and had begun their attack. The domain lords of the surrounding regions of Yenshu Grotto Heaven heard the news and surrendered, and did not dare to resist. Therefore, those few domain lords took the lead. When the other domain lords saw this, there were already a few domain lords who had taken the lead to surrender. They were not iron-head dolls who were seeking death. Of course, there was no need to fight to the death. It was safer to surrender. Soon, another 7 days had passed. As of now, the Rebel Alliance had subdued 10 domains, all of which were around Yenshu Grotto Heaven. As the domain lords announced their surrender one after another, all kinds of news began to spread throughout the boundless heaven continent. First, the Rebel Alliance was indeed as everyone thought. The Kenshin fought against the dark reign of the Azura God Emperor to save the people and restore everyone's freedom. Second, the Rebel Alliance had split into two groups, the North and the South, and were moving simultaneously. The group heading towards the south was led by the Nangong clan, followed by the Lan clan, Aries clan, Xia clan, Shimi Grotto Heaven and Jiang clan. There were a total of 6 ancient clans, and all of them had deep foundations and strong warriors. Not to mention a domain lord, even if a few domain lords were to band together, they would not be a match for them. Therefore, the South Army was like a hot knife through butter, and was successful in every endeavor. As for the group heading towards the north of Yenshu Grotto Heaven, there were only the Feng clan, Yuchi clan and the 100 Smelting Ancient sect. On the surface, these three forces could not be compared to the South Army, and their numbers were reduced by half. However, the North Army was personally led by the Kenshin. One Kenshin was equivalent to 10 ancient clans. Therefore, in the eyes of countless people, the North Army was the most valiant. Third, the goal of the Rebel Alliance was very clear, and that was to subdue the domain lords one by one. It was said that the oath of surrender personally revised by the Kenshin was very sacred and solemn, and was approved and supervised by the heavenly Tao. Those domain lords who surrendered had to recite the heavenly Tao oath. This news was obviously embellished by the people of the Rebel Alliance, and deliberately released by the Shimi Grotto Heaven's intelligence network. The purpose was to let the people think that the Kenshin and the Rebel Alliance were representing Tianqing, and that they represented justice and the will of the heavens. Those immortal king masters and top forces scoffed at this saying. However, the millions of people were more ignorant, and naturally, they believed it easily. Therefore, the people cheered, and were full of admiration for the Kenshin, and were full of anticipation for the Rebel Alliance. Especially those who were still living in the abyss of suffering, and were enslaved and oppressed, they were looking forward day and night to the Rebel Alliance's early arrival to save them. Other than that, there was another piece of news that spread across the mainland. Not long ago, the imperial tutor personally issued a decree to all the domains in the mainland. The content of the decree was simple and straightforward, and it was to gather all the domain lords and gather at the Anya domain immediately. Although the decree did not state the reason and purpose. However, as long as one was not an idiot, one would know that this was the imperial tutor's countermeasure. In just half a month, the Rebel Alliance had conquered 10 domains in a row, and the imperial tutor could no longer sit still. The imperial tutor could not sit by and watch the rebel alliance continue, so he could only come up with this countermeasure to resolve the crisis. Countless forces, domain lords, empires, and people learned of this news, and after careful consideration, they all felt that the imperial tutor's move was not bad, and could indeed resolve the crisis. At least, the imperial tutor could turn passive into active. He could turn the domains into empty cities, and let the rebel alliance attack and occupy them. The rebel alliance would be empty-handed, and occupying those domains would waste time and manpower. If they did not occupy those domains, it would be equivalent to returning empty-handed, and it would be a waste of time. All in all, this was a brilliant plan. However, the key problem was, how many domain lords could the imperial tutor's decree mobilize? How many domain lords would continue to remain loyal and carry out the imperial tutor's orders? At such a chaotic juncture, most domain lords would probably weigh the pros and cons, right? Chapter 41:15. A few days later, new news spread across the boundless heaven continent. The rebel alliance's armies in the north and south were still attacking cities and conquering territory after territory. In the process, the rebel alliance would also eliminate targets on the death list. More than a dozen godly kings and 8 forces loyal to the Azura god emperor were eradicated by the rebel alliance. At the same time, more than 30 territorial lords had rushed to the Dark Knight domain with their families and loyal subordinates. These territorial lords were all loyal supporters of the Azura god emperor and would naturally be loyal to the imperial tutor's orders. They would rather temporarily give up their positions as territorial lords and gather by the imperial tutor's side. Firstly, it could save their lives and be safer. Secondly, it could show their loyalty. However, they could not leave for too long. They had to return to the territory they ruled in a year at the latest. Otherwise, too many things would happen in the next year and the entire domain would be in chaos. Other than the 30 or so territorial lords who took the lead to express their stance, the remaining dozens of territorial lords were still hesitating and weighing the pros and cons. Even if the imperial tutor issued another decree and urged them with harsh words, they were unmoved and were still observing the situation. After all, they were all relatively far away and would not be attacked by the rebel alliance for the time being. They were still considered safe. Moreover, they were unwilling to give up their positions as territorial lords and return to the Dark Knight domain. These territorial lords all understood that in their own domains, they were the noble kings. Once they returned to the Dark Knight domain, they would be soldiers under others and at their beck and call. Moreover, after leaving their own domains, no one knew what would happen and the future could not be predicted. They did not dare to take risks easily. Of course, the most important reason was that, the rebel alliance had also responded and counterattacked. When Ji Tianqing learned that the imperial tutor had issued a decree and that many territorial lords had rushed to the Dark Knight domain with their families, he immediately thought of a way to deal with it. Since those territorial lords are loyal to the Azura god emperor, we don't have to be merciful to them. They are rushing to the Dark Knight domain, but they will leave behind many trusted generals to help them control the various domains. The imperial tutor thought that we were pursuing speed, so we wouldn't stop or waste time occupying these areas. Then we'll kill the trusted aides left behind by those domain lords, eliminate the forces they control in the various domains, and let those domains break free from their control. Of course, we won't split our forces and waste time conquering the various regions. That was to pick a puppet from the first-rate forces of each domain to control that domain. If you can think of a better way, please send a message to me as soon as possible and let me decide. This was Ji Tianqing's order, and it was quickly passed on to the various forces. The day after he gave the order, he led the northern army into a certain domain and headed straight for the domain lord's cave residence. When he arrived at the cave residence, he discovered that the domain master had fled with his family and subordinates the day before, heading for the Dark Knight domain. Ji Tianqing was not angry. He led the Phoenix race, Wuxia race, and the 100 Refinements ancient sect to destroy the territorial lord's cave dwelling. A secret realm with a radius of 100,000 miles was shattered into pieces by his shocking divine ability and scattered in the void. More than 10,000 soldiers under the territorial lord's command were buried with the secret realm. Not even their bones were left. In addition, Ji Tianqing also led an army of 3,000 to eradicate the forces controlled by the territorial lord. He assassinated more than 10 trusted aides, including 3 empire lords. Although he did waste 3 days doing so. However, Ji Tianqing destroyed the territorial lord's direct forces in an unstoppable manner. The forces that the territorial lord had spent hundreds of years to accumulate were destroyed in an instant. The domain also broke free from the territorial lord's control and fell into a state of chaos. At least, no one enslaved and oppressed the common people anymore. The common people of the various empires rose up and resisted. For a time, the various empires were also in a state of war, tired of dealing with the common people's counterattacks. The entire domain was in chaos. A day later, the territorial lord was still on his way to the Dark Night domain. When he heard the news, he was so angry that he vomited 3 bowls of blood on the spot and almost fainted. Kenshin. Didn't you claim to be a benevolent and righteous teacher, representing the heavenly Tao and justice? How can you be so cruel and vicious, killing tens of thousands of soldiers and plunging the entire domain into the flames of war? Before the territorial lord fainted, he roared at the sky like a madman. There was no other way. His life's work had been destroyed, and his position as territorial lord existed in name only. How could he not go crazy? After shouting these 2 sentences, his neck tilted and he fainted. At this time, the few trusted generals, military counselors, and deputy territorial lords who followed him began to panic. Everyone thought to themselves, "Territorial lord, O territorial lord." Previously, everyone advised you not to escape to the Dark Night domain. We would rather observe the situation first, but you insisted on being stubborn. Now you know that you were wrong, right? Kenshin is indeed speaking on behalf of Tianqing and saving the common people, but it doesn't mean that he is holy and kind and won't kill people. Don't forget, the reason why Kenshin has today's fame is because he killed millions and stepped on piles of corpses. To us, Kenshin is a cruel and vicious executioner. But in the eyes of the common people, we are the evil ones. Kenshin is eliminating evil and promoting kindness. Obviously, after the territorial lord had lost his power, the deputy territorial lords and generals under his command had also developed resentment and other thoughts. 2 days later, the rebel alliance's southern army encountered a similar situation. When Nangong Buhua led 6 forces and 6,000 soldiers to a certain region, they discovered that the territorial lord had escaped in the middle of the night. Not only did the territorial lord take away his trusted generals and godly king experts, but he also took away his family and treasure trove. The huge secret realm cave abode was like an empty city. Only tens of thousands of ordinary soldiers were left. Nangong Buhua decisively ordered the 6,000 soldiers to attack the cave abode and destroy it in a few hours. The secret realm was shattered, and the tens of thousands of soldiers were not left behind. After destroying the territorial lord's cave abode, Nangong Buhua split up the 6 forces to eliminate the territorial lord's direct subordinates. At the same time, Nangong Buhua chose a force in the region and supported this force to take over the territorial lord's position. This force was one of the top 3 forces in the region and had always had conflicts and grudges with the territorial lord. However, they were always suppressed. The grudges between the 2 sides had accumulated for a long time. Now that the territorial lord had escaped and the cave abode had been destroyed, this force took the opportunity to join the rebel alliance without hesitation. They swore to be loyal to the Kenshin. The result was obvious. That force naturally took over the region and became the territorial lord appointed by the Kenshin. Moreover, This force would do its best to stabilize the region with its own forces and methods. They would eliminate the forces and disasters left behind by the previous territorial lord and save the common people of the entire region, restoring everyone's freedom. This way, this force would be able to quickly stabilize the region and obtain the gratitude and support of hundreds of millions of people. Just like that, the previous territorial lord was replaced by an enemy before he even met the imperial tutor. When the territorial lord heard the news, he was furious. Chapter 41:16. In less than 2 days, the news spread throughout the boundless heaven continent. In any case, the people of the entire continent had been paying attention to the movements of the rebel alliance and the imperial tutor in the past few months. Many territorial lords, major forces, empires, and hundreds of millions of people were discussing the battle situation, strategies, and movements of both sides every day. When everyone learned of the tragic end of the two territorial lords, they were all surprised by the rebel alliance's ability to adapt. 2 days ago, the people of the entire boundless heaven continent were still lamenting that the imperial tutor's plan was very good. He could seize the initiative and put the rebel alliance in a dilemma. They did not expect that in the blink of an eye, the imperial tutor's plan would be broken by Kenshin. Didn't you summon those territorial lords to gather at the Dark Night domain? You want us to come empty-handed without being able to divide our forces to occupy the various domains? Fine, then we'll directly destroy those territorial lords' cave abodes, kill all the soldiers under his command, and destroy the foundation of his forces. Moreover, we can also support other forces to replace you as territorial lord and throw the entire domain into chaos for you. Those territorial lords of yours who escaped did not even reach the Dark Night domain before their life's work was destroyed. Are you angry? Let me ask you, are you angry? When countless territorial lords, empires, and top forces heard this news, their hearts were heavy, melancholy, and worried. As for those who remained neutral and watched the show, they watched with relish and commented on the plans of both sides. As for the hundreds of millions of people, of course, they cheered and applauded. They recognized and worshipped Kenshin even more. Who said that Kenshin only had powerful strength and did not have shrewdness and schemes? No matter how good the imperial tutor was at scheming, wasn't he still easily crushed by Kenshin? Did you think that Kenshin would not kill people just because he spoke on behalf of Kenshin? The name of Kenshin was built on the accumulation of millions of lives. When it came to Kenshin's brilliant military exploits and shocking achievements, it could be talked about for 3 days and 3 nights. Just like that, the entire boundless heaven continent was boiling with excitement and panic. The dozens of territorial lords who were watching the situation had the most complicated and tormented feelings. They had been waiting to see how the rebel alliance would deal with the imperial tutor's plan. Now, the results were out. The rebel alliance's attitude was very unyielding. If these domain lords dared to flee, then they would uproot their forces. If you don't want to be the domain lord, then I'll choose someone else. Anyway, the boundless heaven continent had many forces. There were also many divine king powerhouses who wanted to be the region lord. With the rebel alliance's support and the Kenshin's approval and conferment, any deity king could become a ruler. Realizing this, the dozens of domain masters began to panic. As the rebel alliance's 2 armies continued to advance, they conquered more and more territories. The domain lords did not have much time left and had to make a decision as soon as possible. This time, other than those who were truly loyal to the Shura God Emperor, those who still had hope in the Shura God Emperor would choose to bring their families to the Dark Night domain. The other 90% of the domain lords chose to preserve their power and status, and remained in their respective domains. It was fine if they did not leave. As long as they obediently admitted defeat and surrendered, the Kenshin would definitely not kill them. The position of region lord would still belong to them. If they dared to flee to the Dark Night domain, even if they saved their lives, they would lose their life's work and the position of region lord. Time passed quickly. The boundless heaven continent had been in chaos, bustling, and clamoring. Almost every 2 days, there would be new news about which domain the Rebel Alliance had conquered. Among those territories conquered by the Rebel Alliance, which domain had abolished slavery. Hundreds of millions of people had regained their freedom and no longer had to be oppressed and exploit resources all day long. A few days later, another force, a well-known divine king powerhouse, was killed by the Rebel Alliance. It turned out that a certain powerhouse was actually a loyal lackey of the imperial tutor despite his sanctimonious appearance. Just like that, the Rebel Alliance continued to spread new news, and the Kenshin's reputation grew. On the other side, the Dark Knight domain had also gathered 36 region lords and hundreds of divine king powerhouses. However, the imperial tutor had gathered such a terrifying number of powerhouses and military strength, but he still held back and did not launch a counterattack. The hundreds of millions of people in the boundless heaven continent were discussing this. Logically speaking, the imperial tutor's military strength was several times that of the rebel alliances. If he took the initiative to attack, he would definitely be able to easily destroy the rebel alliance's 2 armies. What was the imperial tutor trying to do? Why did he not counterattack? Was he going to defend the Dark Knight domain to the death and let the Rebel Alliance conquer all the domains one by one? This was definitely the stupidest and most useless method. Even the people thought so. Of course, the imperial tutor would not do so. Therefore, countless people were speculating that the imperial tutor was definitely plotting some conspiracy. The Rebel Alliance was still attacking cities and strongholds, sweeping through the various domains like the autumn wind sweeping the fallen leaves. However, Ji Tianqing realized that the situation was not so simple, and he also smelled the scent of a conspiracy. He repeatedly reminded the 9 major forces under his command that they must not underestimate the enemy and must be cautious. He had a premonition that it wouldn't be long before the imperial preceptor made his move. Just as expected. The imperial tutor was still overseeing the Dark Knight domain, and on the surface, he seemed to be doing nothing. In reality, he had already mobilized more than 400 god kings and more than 30,000 divine lords to gather in the Dark Knight domain. In the past 2 months, these soldiers had already formed an inescapable net in the Dark Knight domain, forming layers of barriers and defensive lines. At the same time, he secretly sent a team to quietly rush to the south of the boundless heaven continent without anyone knowing. He named that team the God Slayer, in reference to the killing of the Kenshin. The God-punishing army was led by 2 protectors. It was made up of 50 god kings and 5,000 god monarchs. The 2 guardians leading the team had been guarding the Azura Divine Palace for thousands of years and had almost never appeared in front of the world. The strength and status of the 2 guardians were on par with the patrol commander Qi Yan. The 50 god kings in the team were made up of 40 patrol commanders and 10 god generals who had been through hundreds of battles. After the Meng Shuai was killed, the god generals under his command were leaderless, and the imperial tutor took over. These god generals had participated in the War of the Gods 1,000 years ago, and now they were all at the 8th heaven of the god king realm. This was the weakness of the 40 patrol commanders. The strongest was a 7th heaven realm god king, and the weakest was a 5th heaven realm god king. Even so, this team of more than 5,000 people was enough to destroy the Rebel Alliance's southern army. The 5,000 God Slayer members rode on 2 king-grade upper-grade divine ships and quietly rushed to the south of the continent. Their speed was not fast, but their priority was to hide their tracks and auras, and they could not be detected by anyone. In fact, the imperial tutor did not use the domain masters, but used the patrol commanders and god generals to keep it a secret. Now, his trust in the domain masters was greatly reduced. Even though the imperial tutor stayed behind to guard the Dark Knight domain, he was constantly in contact with the God Slayer, so that he could react according to the situation. The Rebel Alliance's northern army seemed weak, but it was personally led by Kenshin, and the imperial tutor knew that he could not afford to provoke it. Therefore, the God Slayer's goal was to destroy the southern army. Chapter 41:17. Ji Tianqing had a premonition that the imperial tutor was up to something. However, he could not predict the future, nor could he guess the imperial tutor's plan out of thin air. Therefore, other than reminding the few forces under his command to be careful, he could not make any other arrangements. He was not too worried about the northern army that he was leading. As long as he was not separated from the Phoenix clan, Wuxia clan, and 100 Refinement's ancient sect, these three forces were very safe. Jin Shuang, Qi Yan, and Meng Shuai were all killed by him. His invincible strength was known to the world. As long as the imperial tutor was not crazy, he would not send people to attack his northern army. Therefore, he was most worried about the southern army. Although the southern army was made up of 6 forces, there were more than 6,000 people in total. It seemed that this army was strong and had many powerful people. They were not to be trifled with. However, that was relative. To the domain lords of the various regions, it was naturally a force that they could not contend against. However, to the imperial tutor, it was obviously a pushover. After all, the soldiers that the imperial tutor gathered were in the tens of thousands. Considering this point, Ji Tianqing sent 3 messages to Nangong Buhua within 5 days, reminding him to be careful and not to be arrogant. He did not know if it was a reminder from the heavens or a premonition. Ji Tianqing had a trace of uneasiness in his heart, and it was getting more and more serious. This was the premonition of a powerful person. Although he could not really predict the future and deduce the secrets of the heavens. However, he could sense and be alert, and he could tell that the uneasiness was related to the southern army. After sending 3 messages, Ji Tianqing did not mention this matter again. He led the Phoenix clan, Wuxia clan, and 100 Refinement's ancient sect to the north of Yenshu Grotto Heaven, conquering various regions along the way. With him personally holding the fort, those territorial lords who did not escape to the Dark Night region were very sensible. As soon as he appeared, they immediately bowed their heads and obediently recited the oath of surrender. After surrendering, those domain lords had to intentionally show their loyalty, or try to curry favor in front of Ji Tianqing by volunteering to carry out some missions. However, as usual, Ji Tianqing did not assign them any tasks. He only asked them to maintain the stability of the region and restore the freedom of the people as soon as possible. If there were any orders or missions, he would send out orders to inform these domain masters. Just like that, 7 days passed by peacefully. Ji Tianqing led the northern army and conquered 7 regions in a row. In order to speed up their journey, he simply asked the 3 forces to retrieve their respective divine ships. More than 3,000 soldiers were gathered in his god-slaying battleship. Everyone traveled together, and their speed more than doubled. In any case, it was a supreme-grade king-grade divine warship. Its interior was extremely spacious, and it could be changed at will. It was more than enough to accommodate more than 3,000 people. The 3 factions expressed their compliance and gladly accepted this. It was good that they could increase their speed and increase their safety. After all, it was Kenshin's flagship. It would definitely be of a higher grade and safer than their own warships. However, when Ji Tianqing led the 3 forces to conquer another region, they were shocked. On this night, the god-slaying battleship sped through the night sky, rushing to the next region. The Shami Grotto Heaven's intelligence network had already investigated clearly. The next region's domain lord had not escaped. He was still sitting in his cave abode, waiting for his death. Or rather, waiting for Kenshin to conquer him. At this moment, Ji Tianqing's uneasiness suddenly became more and more intense. It had already begun to affect his state of mind, making it impossible for him to remain calm. At first, he thought that he had been too worried recently, causing him to feel uneasy. However, even after circulating his energy for an hour, he was still unable to suppress his anxiety and uneasiness. Thus, he realized that something must have happened to the southern army. Such a strong sense of uneasiness meant that the situation was very serious. He pondered for a moment, then summoned the Divine Phoenix clan leader, Wuxia clan leader, and Su Balian to urgently discuss this matter. After the three leaders received the summons, they quickly came to Ji Tianqing's secret room. Lord Alliance Leader, what happened? Lord Alliance Leader summoned us in the middle of the night. Did something big happen? No matter what you are worried about, Lord Alliance Leader, please tell us. We are willing to share your worries. Ever since the Rebel Alliance was established, they had always been victorious. They had never tasted defeat. Now, the entire boundless heaven continent was spreading the Rebel Alliance's name, praising Kenshin. Even their factions were treated as saviors and heroes by the billions of people. The three factions did not pay any casualties, but they received so much praise and support from the people. Of course, they were overjoyed. Perhaps when they first joined the Rebel Alliance, they were still a little uneasy and uncertain about the future. However, now, they were 100 times more confident and approved of the Rebel Alliance. In fact, they even wanted to have a real battle to show off their martial prowess and make meritorious contributions. Ji Tianqing waved his hand, indicating that the three leaders did not need to be so excited. He said calmly, in the past few days, I had a sudden impulse to use a secret technique to deduce the heavenly cycle and predict good and bad luck. As expected, the Southern Army is afraid of a disaster and may not be able to survive this. Therefore, I will personally make a trip to the south. The three factions will each take a warship and rush to the next area. Just act according to the original plan. That zone leader has long had the intention to surrender. He is just waiting for us to arrive and go through the motions. Therefore, you will not encounter any danger on this trip. If things change, you must not fight head-on. Remember to conserve your strength and report to me first. Hearing him say this, the three leaders understood what was going on. At the same time, they were also worried about the Southern Army. Lord Alliance Leader, please rest assured. We will definitely act according to your orders. Lord Alliance Leader, please pay attention to your safety and be careful. Lord Alliance Leader, you are our spiritual leader and the spiritual pillar of the entire boundless heaven continent. Nothing must happen to you. The three leaders also reminded Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing did not say anything else. He put away the God-Slayer worship on the spot and parted ways with the three factions. More than 3,000 soldiers appeared in the night sky. The three leaders hurriedly took out the warship and ordered their disciples to board it. Bai Long steered the God-Slayer warship and flew south with Ji Tianqing. After flying for 100,000 miles, Ji Tianqing glanced at Bai Long. Seeing that he had only used 80% of the God-Slayer warship's power, he said, no need to conserve your strength. Full speed ahead. Full speed ahead meant giving it their all. Every hour, they would use up billions of resources. In a day, they would use up close to 100 billion resources. Bai Long was stunned. He looked at Ji Tianqing with some surprise and asked, Master, is there a need for this? Could it be that the Southern Army has really encountered a disaster? Ji Tianqing nodded slightly and said, I rarely have such premonitions. Since it has appeared, it must be true. To be safe, we should hurry over and meet up with the Southern Army. Book Guest House Reading Website. Chapter 41:18. Seeing Ji Tianqing's solemn tone, White Dragon frowned. Realizing the seriousness of the situation, White Dragon stopped hesitating and activated the acceleration array of the deity-slaying battleship. Whoosh! The divine array of the deity-slaying battleship unleashed 120% of its power, increasing the speed of the battleship by 50%. Instantly, the battleship streaked across the sky like a shooting star and headed south. In order to meet up with Nangong Buhua and the others as soon as possible, the deity-slaying battleship had no time to hide its tracks. Ji Tianqing didn't cultivate in the Jiutian 10 Absolutes Tower either. Instead, he stared at White Dragon in the cockpit. Of course, he sent a message to Nangong Buhua first. Then, he closed his eyes to rest and waited patiently. In the message, he didn't mention that he was heading south. He only reminded Nangong Buhua to be careful and that there might be danger in the next 2 days. Soon, Nangong Buhua sent a message saying that he was leading the Southern Army to the Billowing Waves region to subdue the Billowing Waves region master. If nothing unexpected happened, the Southern Army would arrive at the Domain Master's cave residence in 12 hours, around noon the next day. Shimi Grotto Heaven's intelligence network had found out that the Billowing Waves region master had always been a neutral party. Even when the Imperial Tutor ordered the Billowing Waves region master to gather at the Dark Night region 3 times, the Billowing Waves region master remained unmoved. It seemed that the Billowing Waves region master was determined to surrender. There wouldn't be any accidents. After Ji Tianqing received Nangong Buhua's reply, he didn't say anything else. As he closed his eyes to rest, he thought to himself, if I were the Imperial Tutor, I wouldn't just sit around and wait for death. I have gathered so many elite soldiers and immortal kings. I have to give them a mission to deal a heavy blow to the rebel alliance. Only then can I turn the situation around. With me leading the Northern Army, it's useless for the Imperial Tutor to send anyone. Even if he comes personally, he'll just be digging his own grave. Therefore, the Imperial Tutor is likely to send a very powerful team to the south of the continent secretly to intercept the Southern Army. If he can successfully destroy the Southern Army, he'll be able to destroy the 6 forces of the Rebel Alliance and deal a heavy blow to the Rebel Alliance. At the same time, the Imperial Tutor can redeem his reputation and intimidate the other region masters. Ji Tianqing had made this judgment based on the uneasiness in his heart and the warning signs that had appeared in his mind. He was immersed in his deduction and continued to simulate the thoughts of the Imperial Preceptor. Since they've sent out a team of experts to secretly rush to the south of the continent, their target is the Southern Army. Then, they must keep it a secret. Only then will they be able to succeed in one strike, the Southern Army's armies. Unless the Imperial Preceptor has my deduction and calculation ability, it is impossible to intercept and kill the Southern Army on the way. At this point, Ji Tianqing's eyes lit up as an idea flashed through his mind. Could it be the Rippling Waves domain? The Southern Army's current route and goal were very obvious. They were heading for the Billowing domain. With the Imperial Tutor's intelligence network, he would definitely be able to find out about this. Therefore, the Imperial Tutor sending that team of experts to ambush the Southern Army in the Billowing domain was definitely the safest choice. However, on second thought, Ji Tianqing felt that something was amiss. But the Billowing domain's ruler isn't loyal to the Azura God Emperor. He's also a person who values his own interests and has no backbone or dignity. He's already expressed his willingness to surrender. How can he cooperate with the Imperial Tutor to ambush the Southern Army? Ji Tianqing's first reaction was that the team of experts couldn't possibly be ambushing the Southern Army in the Billowing domain. But he thought about it again. The more impossible something was, the more careless one would be. Take Nangong Buhua for example. No matter how Ji Tianqing reminded him, he wouldn't take it seriously. At least, Nangong Buhua didn't think that there would be any danger in the Billowing domain. The Billowing domain's ruler is a fence-sitter. If our alliance finds him first, he'll probably surrender. But he didn't openly betray the Imperial Tutor. If the Imperial Tutor's team finds him, he probably won't resist, right? With this thought, Ji Tianqing vaguely guessed the Imperial Tutor's plan and the location of the Southern Army's calamity. Therefore, he took out a communication jade slip and prepared to remind Nangong Buhua to be careful of the Billowing domain. But after he took out the jade slip, he retracted his hand. After all, he had already sent 4 messages to Nangong Buhua. The contents were roughly the same. They were all reminding Nangong Buhua to be careful and not be careless. If he sent another message, wouldn't Nangong Buhua be annoyed? Would it make him seem too cautious and lose the demeanor of an expert? Most importantly, all of this was just his conjecture and imagination. He didn't have any evidence. If he rashly sent a message to Nangong Buhua, but everything was normal in the billowing domain and nothing happened as he predicted, it would be a huge blow to him. That would definitely be a huge blow to him and affect his prestige. Thinking of this, Ji Tianqing put away the communication jade slip and decided to wait and see. Of course, White Dragon would still drive the god-slaying battleship to the billowing domain as quickly as possible. At the same time, late at night, in the residence of the billowing domain's ruler, the mystic realm with a radius of hundreds of thousands of miles was filled with abundant divine power and beautiful scenery. In the center of the mystic realm, there were hundreds of mansions and palaces on a majestic mountain range. Nearly 10,000 elite soldiers lived there. At this moment, thousands of elite masters were hiding in the majestic mountain range under the night sky. These monarch god masters were very skilled in concealment. They merged with the earth and mountains and were almost undetectable. The many palaces in the domain chief's manor were lit as usual. It was as peaceful as usual. However, in the residence of the billowing domain's ruler, a solemn and serious scene was playing out. The billowing domain's ruler and more than 10 god generals were standing in the brightly lit main hall with their hands clasped behind their backs and their heads lowered respectfully. Dozens of god kings stood under the walls and in the corners of the main hall. All of them were full of murderous intent and were glaring at the ruler. 2 white-haired old men in luxurious robes stood before the throne at the head of the table. 8 god kings stood beside them as well. The 2 old men in luxurious robes had the most powerful aura and the most dignified postures. After all, they were not only god kings in the 9th firmament realm, but also the great guardian and second guardian who had guarded the Azura divine palace for many years. What was the billowing domain's ruler in front of these experts? Of course, she had to stand obediently and respectfully and wait for her punishment. At this moment, the great guardian reprimanded her with a cold face. Billowing domain's ruler, you have failed to live up to the God Emperor's trust and title. Your performance this time has greatly disappointed the imperial tutor. In view of your disloyalty, the imperial tutor will take note of you temporarily and hope that you can redeem yourself by meritorious service. Otherwise, I'm here tonight to put you on trial in front of everyone. The second guardian said expressionlessly, I can't trust you for the time being. Therefore, for the sake of our grand plan, you and your generals can only stay in the prison for a few days. Chapter 41:19. Without a doubt. The God Slayer secretly sent by the imperial tutor had arrived at the Wavy Wave domain and taken control of the domain chief's mansion. The God Slayer didn't have much hope for the Wavy Wave domain chief, who was a fence-sitter. After sneaking into the domain chief's mansion, the God Slayer took control of the entire secret realm by force. He didn't let anyone in or out and imprisoned all the soldiers in case anyone leaked the information. Then, the 2 guardians led a group of god kings to seal off the residence of the Wavy Wave domain chief. Following that, the aforementioned situation and conversation took place. The God Slayer treated the Wavy Wave domain chief like an enemy, which was really chilling. However, the 2 guardians and the Wavy Wave domain chief both knew that no one would show mercy at such a critical moment. Protecting their own interests was the most important thing. Therefore, the Wavy Wave domain chief didn't fight back on the spot, nor did he try to send a message to warn the rebel alliance. Anyway, his attitude had been wavering. He could accept being loyal to the Azura God Emperor or the rebel alliance. As for the result, it depended on which force entered the domain chief's mansion first and took control of him first. I will obey the orders of the 2 protectors. Hearing the second protector's order, the Wavy Wave region master bowed indifferently and said, Protectors, please understand. This subordinate has always been His Majesty the God Emperor and has never changed. Of course, I know it's too late to say anything now. So, let me prove it with my actions. The Wavy Wave Domain Chief had made a decision in the short time just now. He would continue to be loyal to the Azura God Emperor. Even if the two guardians and the Imperial Tutor still doubted him, he could redeem himself by stopping the Rebel Alliance and proving his innocence. Unfortunately, the two guardians didn't intend to give him the chance. Now you want to redeem yourself by doing good deeds? Proving your innocence? The Great Guardian raised his eyebrows and squinted at the Wavy Wave Domain Chief with a disdainful sneer. That won't be necessary. You'd better go to the prison and reflect on yourself. With that, the Great Protector waved his sleeve and ordered, "Take him away." Immediately, several armored godly kings escorted the Domain Master, Vice Domain Master, and a dozen divine generals out of the hall. Next, they would be suppressed in a heavily guarded prison until the God Slayer destroyed the Rebel Alliance's southern army. Only then would they be released. The hall was silent for a moment. Before long, one of the God Kings responsible for escorting the Region Lord and the others returned to the hall. He reported to the two protectors, the Region Lord and the others have been imprisoned, and the sealing formation has been activated. The Great Guardian nodded slightly and warned in a solemn tone, "Stay alert and watch over them strictly. Don't let them escape. Most importantly, we have to keep an eye on them day and night. We can't let them spread the news." Everyone knew that the Domain Master of the Wavy Sea Domain wanted to rebel. If at this moment, the Domain Master of the Billowing Wave Domain tried to send out a message to alert the Rebel Alliance's southern army, this would be his proof of allegiance. He could take credit for saving the southern army and join the Rebel Alliance. However, the God Slayer's hard work and the Imperial Tutor's meticulous plan would all go to waste. The God King bowed and acknowledged the order. Then, he left the hall to carry out his mission. The hall was quiet again. The Great Protector looked at the divine generals and asked, "How's the ambush formation that I asked you to set up?" The leader of the divine generals hurriedly replied, "Great Protector, the soldiers have already completed their mission. They hid very well. I've checked twice and found no problems." The Great Protector nodded and said to the second Protector, "I'm afraid that the ambush formation is not enough. We have to take action as well. While the southern army of the Rebel Alliance hasn't arrived yet, let's try to set up 2 more formations in half a day." The second Protector thought for a moment and nodded in agreement. "If we use 36 God Kings to help us set up the formations, it shouldn't be difficult to complete." After the discussion, everyone started to move. Half a day passed quickly. At noon the next day, several divine warships flew across the sky in a formation and approached the palace of the Surge Domain rapidly. Obviously, the southern army of the Rebel Alliance had arrived on time. The entrance to the secret realm was already in sight. In the divine warships of the 6 forces, the disciples of each clan finished their rest and started to prepare for battle. The clan leaders and elders of each clan also gathered in the hall of the divine warship. They were ready to give orders at any time. The divine warship in the lead was the Nangong clan's warship. More than 1,000 disciples of the Nangong clan were ready to set off. They were in high spirits. Nangong Buhua, Nangong Nihuang, and several elders stood in the hall and looked at the entrance of the secret realm with their divine senses. The Alliance Master has already reminded us 3 times to be careful. We have been very cautious and didn't encounter any accidents along the way. Now, we have arrived on time. The Surge Domain Master, that fence-sitter, has already shown signs of surrendering. I think that when we arrive at the entrance of the secret realm, there won't even be a battle. They will let us through directly. At that time, he won't even have the courage to negotiate. He will just swear the oath of surrender. Nangong Buhua looked ahead and said with a smile. The elders nodded in agreement. They all laughed and talked, making fun of the Surge Domain Master. Only Nangong Nihuang remained calm. She reminded her father appropriately, "Father, since young Master Long has warned us 3 times to be careful, something must have happened. He has divine powers that we can't imagine. He must have sensed something. That's why he is so serious. Even if we arrive at the Surge Domain Master's mansion, we can't let our guard down. Nangong Buhua nodded seriously and said, Ni Huang is right. Young Master Long is not an alarmist. He must have his reasons for being so cautious. After pausing for a moment, he thought of an idea and said to Nangong Ni Huang, send a message to the other 5 clans. Tell them to stay alert. We, the Nangong clan, will go to the entrance of the secret realm and enter the Surge Domain Master's mansion to check out the situation. Let them follow behind us. They can come in after I make sure it is safe. Normally, a leader would let the other clans under him test the enemy's situation. They would be cannon fodder and die. However, as the deputy leader of the rebel alliance, Nangong Buhua knew that there were a few clans who were not convinced. He didn't want to let Ji Tianqing down, so he worked even harder. Not only did he take the lead in carrying out the mission, but he was also the first to go when there was danger. He helped the other clans to scout the way and bring up the rear. He did this because he didn't want to give others a reason to criticize him. He wanted the other clans to be convinced that the Nangong clan had sacrificed the most. He deserved the position of deputy leader. Chapter 41-20. Nangong Ni Huang and the other elders saw how selfless Nangong Buhua was. Everyone had complicated expressions. They wanted to persuade Nangong Buhua that there was no need to do this. But they could not say it out loud. They knew what Nangong Buhua was thinking. Nangong Ni Huang still followed the order and sent a message to the other 5 families. However, the leaders of the 5 families had different thoughts when they received the message. They told the elders of Nangong Buhua's order, and everyone started to discuss it. We arrived at the entrance of the mystic realm together. Of course, we have to go in together to find the wavy zone ruler. What is Nangong Buhua doing? He made it sound nice. He said that he was afraid of danger and wanted to check out the situation first. It seems that he would rather sacrifice the Nangong clan to protect us. Ha! But who knows what he is really thinking? The wavy zone ruler has already shown her intention to surrender. She is a fence-sitter. What danger can there be? The way I see it, he's probably trying to steal the credit. That's right. All along, the 6 families have been successful when working together. However, merits that were too hard to obtain were not considered merits. Nangong Buhua is too weak to be a deputy leader. Of course, he wants to gain credit as soon as possible. Humph. What does the leader see in Nangong Buhua? When the leader returned to the boundless heaven continent, he would definitely be stronger than the Nangong clan if he went to our Lan family. Sigh. Nangong Buhua is so lucky to become the deputy leader. In terms of status, experience, and strength, how can he be compared to our war god clan? We respect the Kenshin, but that doesn't mean we have to lower our heads to the Nangong clan. Don't listen to Nangong Buhua. He wants to take credit for himself. Let's not let him succeed. Nangong Buhua doesn't live up to his title as the deputy leader. He knows it himself. That's why he wants to gain more credit so that he can have a clear conscience. But we can't let him have his way. Even though the 5 families had split up and each took a divine ship. They all had the same reaction when they received the news. All the clans thought highly of themselves and felt that the Nangong clan was not as strong as them. Nangong Buhua was not fit to be the vice alliance master. Even if Nangong Buhua wanted the Nangong clan to be cannon fodder, they didn't appreciate it and even thought that Nangong Buhua wanted to steal the credit. Thus, an awkward scene appeared. As they approached the entrance of the secret realm, the battleship of the Nangong clan took the lead and headed straight for the entrance. According to the plan, the warships of the other 5 families should slow down and stay 10,000 miles away to observe the situation. After the Nangong clan entered the grotto heaven and ascertained that it was safe, the battleships of the 5 clans would follow. But now, the battleships of the 5 families showed no signs of slowing down. They continued to follow the battleships of the Nangong clan and rushed towards the entrance of the secret realm. At the sight of this, Nangong Buhua frowned and his face darkened. However, he did not get angry. Instead, a look of self-mockery flashed across his eyes. Ha! It seems that this seat has been thinking too much. Looks like their prejudice towards this seat is not something that can be dispelled overnight. Nangong Nihuang and the elders all looked angry and couldn't help but discuss. Those 5 families actually disobeyed the order. Do they still have any respect for the deputy alliance leader? Don't talk about it. They have always been unhappy that our clan leader has become the deputy alliance leader. Damn it! Even if they have prejudice against our clan leader, they can't treat a military order as a joke. That's right. If something happens and the alliance leader pursues the matter, can they bear the responsibility? The elders were filled with righteous indignation and couldn't wait to reprimand the 5 families. Nangong Nihuang also frowned and said indifferently, "Stop discussing and focus on preparing for the battle. Report this matter to the alliance leader after the battle and he will naturally deal with it. What we need to do is to do our best to complete the mission. We can't disappoint the alliance leader and can't embarrass him." The elders quickly nodded in agreement and stopped discussing this matter. They suppressed their anger and remained calm as they began to mobilize the disciples of the Nangong clan. Swoosh! The battleship of the Nangong clan arrived at the entrance of the secret realm and quickly stopped. The cabin door opened and Nangong Buhua rushed out first. Nangong Nihuang and the 5 elders led 1,200 disciples and rushed out of the battleship in a mighty manner. Swoosh! In a short while, the Nangong clan had surrounded the cloud platform at the entrance of the secret realm. There were more than 100 elite guards on the cloud platform floating in the sea of clouds. They were guarding the array altar that led in and out of the secret realm. They were also vigilant and alert. When they saw the battleship attacking, they had already sent a message to the people in the secret realm. When the disciples of the Nangong clan surrounded the cloud platform, the 100 guards quickly waved their divine weapons and launched an attack fearlessly. Suddenly, an overwhelming divine light shrouded the sky and covered the scorching noon sun. Seeing this scene, the people of the Nangong clan were stunned and somewhat incredulous. What's the situation with the guards of the Billowing Waves Domain Chief's mansion? More than 100 guards surrounded by thousands of our troops have the courage to take the initiative to attack. They are courting death. The situation doesn't look good. Didn't they say that the Billowing Waves Domain Chief had the intention to surrender? I didn't see that at all. Although these thoughts flashed through their minds, their hands were not idle. They immediately launched a counterattack. Kill them. Those who stand in the way of our army shall be killed without mercy. Nangong Buhua and Nangong Nihuang gave the order decisively. Swoosh! 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 Instantly, more than 1,000 disciples of the Nangong clan, who were ready to attack, unleashed violent divine power and unleashed destructive divine skills. The divine skills that covered the sky and the sun, as well as various kinds of wind, fire, and lightning, poured down like a torrential flood and drowned the 100 guards. Boom! 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 The divine skills of the two sides collided with deafening loud noises that spread over a radius of tens of thousands of miles. The divine spell attacks of the guards were directly blocked and shattered. They had no lethality to speak of. However, a round of attacks from the disciples of the Nangong clan defeated the 100 guards and killed or injured many of them. The guards were instantly defeated. More than 100 of them were killed on the spot. Not even their corpses were left. More than 50 people who were lucky enough to survive were also severely injured. They were dripping with blood and struggling at death's door. At this moment, the 5 families also sent out a large number of disciples to join the battle. The dozens of guards who were lucky enough to survive turned around and retreated without hesitation when they saw that the situation was not good. Since they were going to escape back to the mystery realm, they had to activate the array altar and open the entrance to the mystery realm. After they passed through the oval-shaped light door and escaped back to the mystery realm, it was too late to deactivate the array. Nangong Buhua, Nangong Nihuang, and the others chased after them. They killed several guards who deactivated the array and led the way into the mystery realm. Chapter 41-21. When the Nangong clan rushed into the secret land, the entrance to the secret land had been breached. Nangong Buhua and Nangong Nihuang led the Nangong clan disciples to chase after the 50 fleeing guards. The 5 clans followed them and entered the secret land in a single file. After they entered the secret land, several battleships followed them in. More than 6,000 Nangong clan disciples rushed to the center of the secret land and headed straight for the master of the wavy zone. 6 battleships followed them closely, escorting them on both sides and monitoring the surroundings. Of course, the 5 clans only wanted to rush forward and not let the Nangong clan take the lead. Nangong Buhua, who was at the front, was thinking about something else. This is too strange. The master of the wavy zone has been thinking about surrendering for a long time. Since he hasn't run away, he must surrender when we arrive. Even a fool knows that he can't resist because that's suicide. He doesn't even need to sacrifice the 100 guards at the entrance of the secret land. Even if he wants to put on a show, he doesn't need to sacrifice the lives of 100 guards. Is young Master Long right? Has the situation changed? At the thought of this, Nangong Buhua felt a sense of danger and slowed down his speed. He focused more of his attention on monitoring the movements around him. He thought that if the master of the wavy zone wanted to play some tricks, he would probably set up traps and ambushes. As long as he was careful and didn't fall into his trap, he could gain the upper hand and take the initiative. However, the Nangong clan followed Nangong Buhua's order and slowed down. However, the 5,000 Nangong clan disciples didn't slow down at all. Instead, they took the opportunity to speed up and chase after the 50 fleeing guards. We have more than 5,000 people. Can't we deal with those 50 injured guards? If those guards escape back to the master's mansion, we'll lose face. What does the master of the wavy zone want to do? If he wants to surrender, he should surrender. How can he let the guards resist? In that case, let's teach him a lesson. We must kill those 50 guards to intimidate the master of the wavy zone. The 5 clans all had the same idea. In fact, they did succeed. The 50 heavily injured guards weren't able to escape fast enough. It didn't take long for the 5 families to catch up. There were more than 200 of the clan disciples at the front. Each of them used a divine ability and killed the 50 or so guards. Moreover, their deaths were extremely miserable. They died without an intact corpse, their bodies smashed to pieces. After killing more than 50 guards, the 5 clans could finally hold their heads high and regain their valiant aura. They did not slow down. Instead, they charged toward the domain chief's manor in an extremely confident and domineering manner. When Nangong Buhua saw their posture, he hurriedly shouted to remind everyone to slow down and be careful of the enemy's ambush. But how could the people of the 5 clans listen? Many of the patriarchs and elders revealed playful smiles. The disciples of the various clans all laughed out loud, and some even opened their mouths to mock and ridicule. Ha ha ha, there are over 10,000 people in the domain chief's mansion, but only about 1,000 divine emperors with fighting capabilities. Even if they wanted to resist and set up an ambush, what's the point? The alliance of our 6 clans is made up of elite soldiers. Why should we be afraid of a mere domain lord? What's wrong with Nangong family head? Why did he become so timid and overcautious? Could it be that he failed to take the credit, so he's thinking of other ways? Ha ha ha. That's very likely. Sigh. Nangong family head, don't bother. Even if the Nangong family doesn't show up, we can easily deal with the domain chief by watching from the sidelines. Many bold disciples of the clans even started to mock Nangong Buhua. When the people of the Nangong family heard these words, they were all angry. Many hot-blooded men were so angry that their lungs were about to explode. They glared at the disciples of the various clans. However, Nangong Nihuang had already given a strict order that no internal strife was allowed. Otherwise, they would be punished according to the most severe clan rules. Therefore, the people of the Nangong family could only endure for the time being. Nangong Buhua was angry and helpless when he saw that the 5 clans didn't obey his order or listen to his advice. However, he didn't have any good ideas at the moment, and he couldn't change the prejudice of the 5 clans against him in the short term. For the time being, he could only take the overall situation into consideration and endure this humiliation. At the same time, he prayed silently in his heart that he was just being paranoid and that there wouldn't be any accidents. Otherwise, if the Southern Army suffered heavy losses, he, as the leader and deputy leader of the army, would have to bear the blame. After all, Kenshin trusted him so much that he gave him full authority over the Nangong family's army. Unknowingly, 15 minutes had passed. More than 6,000 people of the Southern Army arrived at the domain chief's mansion under the cover of 6 battleships. Along the way, the people of the various clans released their divine senses and used their ultimate skills to repeatedly check the situation in the secret land. Even Nangong Buhua was very cautious about the surroundings. However, there were no accidents along the way, and the army wasn't ambushed. In front of them was a lofty mountain range, and palaces and mansions were built on the peaks of each mountain. It was a splendid sight. The armies and battleships of the 5 clans pressed forward majestically. They were very confident and domineering. They landed above the domain chief's mansion and looked down at the entire mansion from above. When they saw that the palaces and mansions below them were in chaos, a loud ear-piercing sound rang out. An ear-piercing alarm sounded, and a powerful bugle horn sounded. More than 1,000 guards ran in a panic. Seeing this, the crowd was not nervous or worried at all. Instead, they smiled contemptuously. Soon after, more than 1,000 guards gathered in the square and flew into the sky to confront the Southern Army. Then, the crowd realized that the situation was not good. Lan Wuji, the War God clan leader, and the Xia clan leader all frowned and shouted at the guard commanders, "Are you the only guards in the entire domain chief's mansion? Where is the domain chief of the Billow domain? Where is your deputy? The Southern Army of the Rebel Alliance is here. Ask the domain chief of the Billow domain to come out and talk. The domain chief of the Billow domain only sent these small fries to deal with us. She has underestimated us. Domain chief of the Billow domain, I'll give you 3 breaths to show yourself. Otherwise, don't blame us for being rude." The patriarchs all had aggressive auras as they questioned the other party in a domineering manner. Cave Master Shimi even used his divine power to shout out loud to force the domain chief of the Billow domain to show herself. Nangong Buhua didn't say anything, but his face was solemn, and the uneasiness in his heart grew stronger. At this moment, 2 white-haired elders flew out of the domain chief's mansion, followed by 18 god kings. They came to the sky and looked at the disciples of the 6 clans with cold smiles. The domain chief of the Billow domain is reflecting on her mistakes in the prison. Clan leaders, I've been waiting for you for a long time. The Book Guest House Reading Website. Chapter 41-22. The sudden appearance of the 2 white-haired old men and the 18 god kings stunned the people of the 6 clans. Especially the words of the 2 elders, everyone's expression changed drastically. They knew that something was wrong. Oh no, we seem to have fallen into a trap. Be more confident. Don't say, seem. Damn it. No wonder I felt that something was wrong. I didn't expect the Wavy Zone Master to be so bold as to set up a trap. From what the white-haired old man said, they have imprisoned the Wavy Zone Master. This means that the ambush was not set up by the Wavy Zone Master. It was done by the 2 old men. I understand now. The 2 old men were sent by the Imperial Tutor. I see. They knew that the Wavy Zone Master intended to surrender, so they captured her. If there were only 20 godly kings, there would be nothing to worry about. I'm afraid that they have already set up a trap in all directions. Oh no, we shouldn't have rushed into their ambush in such a hurry. The patriarchs, elders, and disciples of the 5 families were whispering to each other, their expressions solemn. Of course, their discussions and predictions were immediately verified. As their voices fell, the towering mountains and precipitous ridges in all directions immediately lit up with divine light that blotted out the sky and covered the earth. Swoosh! 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 The divine light shot up and gathered in the sky, forming a huge light shield with a radius of 20,000 miles. It was like an inverted bowl that sealed off an area with a radius of 20,000 miles, trapping the disciples and the battleships of the 6 families. Then, thousands of godly emperors in armor flew into the sky with swords in their hands and got into an offensive formation. 30 godly kings were scattered in all directions, occupying the core position of the offensive formation. They commanded more than 3,000 godly emperors. In an instant, all the God Slayer moved out and exposed the trap like a ferocious beast bearing its sharp fangs. A formless killing intent immediately filled the air, causing the atmosphere to become extremely solemn and austere. The people of the 5 families looked embarrassed. While they were worried, they regretted not listening to Nangong Buhua's advice. After all, before entering the Mystery Land, Nangong Buhua had warned everyone that there was danger and asked the Nangong clan to enter the Mystery Land first to investigate the situation. Even after entering the secret realm, Nangong Buhua reminded everyone again. However, the people of the 5 clans didn't listen to his advice. Only then did they enter the ambush. Everyone could not help but think that if they had listened to Nangong Buhua's advice, things would not have turned out this way. At the very least, as long as the Nangong clan was ambushed, they would not fall into a desperate situation. Thinking of this, the people of the 5 clans were somewhat regretful and annoyed. Many people subconsciously turned their heads to see the reaction of Nangong Buhua and the others. When they turned their heads to look behind them, they discovered that the Nangong clan had already retreated 20,000 miles away and were outside the ceiling formation. It turned out that Nangong Buhua had long predicted that the situation was not good. There might be changes in the domain chief's mansion. When the 2 white-haired old men and the 18 god kings appeared, he gave the order to retreat decisively to prevent an ambush. As it turned out, he had succeeded. When the formation was activated, the 1,000+ people of the Nangong clan all retreated outside the formation. Seeing this, the expressions of the people of the 5 clans became more and more interesting. All kinds of thoughts flashed through many people's minds. Nangong Buhua is cunning. He sensed danger and retreated in advance. We are all trapped in the formation, but the Nangong clan is fine. It's... Alas! If we knew this would happen, we should have listened to him and stayed at the back to be vigilant. If we had followed Nangong Buhua's plan, we would have stayed at the back and let the Nangong clan scout the situation first. Now, it should have been the other way around. Alas! No matter what, as the deputy alliance leader, he can't absolve himself from the blame for not making the correct decision in advance. That, he reminded us twice. We just didn't listen to his orders. Shut up. He is the deputy alliance leader. If we are severely injured, won't he be responsible for it? Most of the disciples of the 5 clans regretted not listening to Nangong Buhua's orders. However, there were still a few people who refused to admit their mistakes and wanted to shift the blame to Nangong Buhua. There were many people in any time and place who did not reflect on themselves and were used to shifting the blame. The 2 white-haired elders opened their mouths again. Looking down at the 5,000 people in the formation, they sneered and said, "During this period of time, you traitors have had a smooth journey, and you've been flaunting your prowess. The Imperial Tutor hasn't made a move yet. Do you think that the Imperial Tutor is afraid of you? Ha ha ha. How ignorant and ridiculous. The reason why the Imperial Tutor hasn't made a move yet is because he has planned this shocking plan to catch all of you in one fell swoop. Today is the day all of you rebels die. I am benevolent and can't bear to see you die so carelessly. Therefore, I will let you know our identities. I am the first guardian who guards the Azura Divine Palace all year round. This is the second guardian. We have guarded the Divine Palace for thousands of years and have never shown our faces. Therefore, the world doesn't know about us. However, everyone in the Azura Divine Palace knows that we are the head guardians of the Divine Palace." After introducing himself, the first guardian pointed to the 5,000 soldiers around him and said, "These 5,000 people are the elite soldiers under the God Emperor. The Imperial Tutor selected us to form the God Slayer. We are on a secret mission to kill all of you. Of course, the God Slayer is only 10% of the Imperial Tutor's soldiers. It's obvious how tiny and laughable all of you rebels are when compared to us." The second guardian continued, "Don't make any unnecessary struggles and resistance. Give up all your fantasies and accept your death obediently. After killing all of you, we still have to kill the Kenshin and the 3 forces he leads. We'll let the people of the boundless heaven continent see how weak you all, this bunch of renegades, are." After saying this, the second guardian waved his hand and gave the order to attack. The 30 God King powerhouses scattered around immediately revolved their cultivation and activated the sealing array. They released a powerful force to suppress the 5 clans' juniors. The over 3,000 soldiers also brandished their divine weapons and unleashed all kinds of divine abilities to besiege the people of the 5 clans. Suddenly, the pressure on the 5 clans' juniors greatly increased. It was difficult for them to move and their combat strength was greatly weakened. Divine light and shadows blotted out the sky and covered the earth. They carried with them the power to destroy heaven and earth, pouring down from the sky. The 5,000 clans' juniors had no way out. They could only let out angry roars and erupt with their strongest strength. They joined forces to form a battle formation to resist the enemy's attack. Chapter 41-23. Although both sides had the same number of people and experts. However, the God Slayer was waiting for an opportunity to strike. Over 5,000 disciples were ambushed and their powers were suppressed by the array. One side had the initiative, while the other was in a passive position. The result was self-evident. Both sides had only exchanged one round of blows, but the God Slayer was obviously at an advantage. There were no casualties. As for the 5,000 disciples, they did not have any chemistry or cooperation with each other, so they could not completely block the other side's attack. Over 100 disciples were injured. There were also over 50 weaker and unlucky disciples who were killed on the spot. This result made the God Slayer even more pleased. The disciples were furious, but there was nothing they could do. On the other side, the Great Guardian and the 18 God Kings did not participate in this battle. Their target was the Nangong clan that was outside the sealing formation. They did not care about the 5,000 disciples who were sealed by the array. In their eyes, the 5,000 disciples were like turtles in a jar and would definitely die. The only uncertainties were the disciples of the Nangong clan who had been alerted in advance and hadn't been sealed by the formation. The God Slayer had spent a lot of time and effort to design this trap and ambush. His goal was to wipe out the entire southern army in one fell swoop. Since he wanted to wipe them all out, he could not let any of them escape. Swish! Swish! The Great Protector led 18 God King powerhouses and 1,000 Divine Lord powerhouses towards the Nangong clan as fast as lightning. The second Guardian stayed near the array and led 30 God Kings and 4,000 God Lords to continue attacking the disciples of the 5 clans. Both sides had a clear division of labor and cooperated well. Compared to the 6 clans who fought individually and could not coordinate well, the God Slayer was able to unleash a stronger combat power. Nangong Buhua. I heard that the Kenshin appointed you as the Deputy Alliance leader. Haha, then you have to die. The Great Guardian chased after the Nangong clan disciples and locked onto Nangong Buhua's aura. He laughed coldly. Nangong Buhua did not reply. He only gave the order and led the disciples of the Nangong clan to escape towards the exit of the mystic realm. Even if the situation was dangerous, he could still remain calm and make the right decision. The first step was to remain vigilant and not fall into an ambush or trap. He had already done that. After this, he still had to lead the Nangong clan out of the mystic realm and escape the pursuit of the God Slayer. Only then could he consider asking Ji Tianqing for help, or save the disciples of the 5 clans. Unfortunately, no matter how desperately the Nangong clan fled, they were unable to escape the pursuit of the Protector and the God Kings. They had only managed to flee 80,000 kilometers away when they were stopped by the Great Protector and the 18 God Kings. Following that, the 1,000+ elite soldiers surrounded the Nangong clan disciples. Seeing that there was no way to escape, the disciples of the Nangong clan formed a formation and stood in front of each other. They were all equipped with the strongest defensive equipment and unleashed their most powerful strength, joining forces to resist the siege of the numerous soldiers. Nangong Buhua, Nangong Nihuang, the elders and deacons worked together to deal with the Great Protector and the 18 Divine Kings. Both sides did not waste any more words and immediately began to fight fiercely. Dazzling 5-colored divine light covered a radius of 20,000 kilometers. Various divine techniques clashed with wind, fire, and lightning, causing deafening explosions. The 1,000+ elite soldiers were very powerful and their attacks were abnormally fierce. However, the disciples of the Nangong clan worked together and cooperated very well. They actually managed to block the fierce attacks. The first round of battle ended very quickly. Only about 20 disciples of the Nangong clan were injured. This was not only the result of the disciples working together, but also the result of Nangong Buhua using his battleship to protect them. That battleship was Nangong Buhua's battleship, an upper-grade king-level divine artifact. It was also the most powerful battleship of the Nangong clan. If it were anyone else, they would definitely not be willing to use their own battleship as a divine artifact to protect their disciples. However, Nangong Buhua only wanted to reduce the casualties of his disciples and stall for time so that they could counterattack and escape from the mystic realm. Therefore, he did not feel sorry for his battleship. Not only did the huge battleship block many divine techniques, it also activated the divine array to increase its power to the maximum and released the most ferocious cannon fire. As a result, there were casualties among the disciples of the Nangong clan. The 1,000+ God Slayer also suffered casualties. In the first round of battle, both sides were evenly matched. Neither side had the upper hand. However, the 18 God Kings led by the Great Guardian firmly suppressed Nangong Buhua, Nangong Nihuang, and the others. After all, the Chief Protector's side had more Divine King powerhouses. Furthermore, their overall strength was slightly stronger. The Great Guardian was a late-stage 9th Heaven God King. In terms of strength, he was stronger than Nangong Buhua. The average strength of the other 18 god kings was also stronger than Nangong Nihuang, the elders, and the deacons. As a result, the battle high in the sky was even more intense. Nangong Buhua and the Nangong clan's god kings were in an even more dangerous situation. After exchanging a few blows, Nangong Buhua was suppressed by the Great Guardian and was in a disadvantageous position. Nangong Nihuang and the deacons were injured, and their robes were stained with blood. The situation was not optimistic, but Nangong Buhua did not give up easily. He still used all his trump cards and ultimate skills to fight the Great Guardian fiercely. After exchanging more than 10 blows, he finally found an opportunity to send out a communication jade slip. It was a jade slip to report the situation to Ji Tianqing and ask for help. Nangong Buhua did not have much hope. He knew that Ji Tianqing was far to the north of Yenshu's cave and would not be able to come to his rescue. No matter how fast Ji Tianqing was, it would take him 1.5 days to reach here. By then, the battle would have ended. The disciples of the 6 clans would have been killed by the God Slayer. However, Nangong Buhua still insisted on carrying out his duty as the deputy chief. Even if he would be completely annihilated here, he had to tell Ji Tianqing the truth as soon as possible. This was the only way that Ji Tianqing could adjust his strategy in time and find a way to deal with the situation. He would not be ambushed by the God Slayer and fall into the Imperial Tutor's trap because of the lack of information. When Nangong Buhua sent out the message for help, a thought flashed across his mind. "Mr. Long, I have tried my best. It is a pity that I am unable to convince everyone in such a short period of time. In the end, I was unable to protect the other 5 clans. I have betrayed your trust. I am afraid that this failure will affect your revenge plan. I am really ashamed and sorry. If I die here today, I will let it go. But if I survive, I will not be able to face you." Sigh. With a long sigh in his heart, Nangong Buhua put away his distracting thoughts and did not think about anything else. He disregarded his life and death and used all his strength to display his ultimate skills to fight fiercely with the Great Guardian. Even if he had to die today, he would fight to the last moment and die with honor and dignity. Chapter 41-24. Within the secret realm, the battlefield was split into 2. On the other side, the Nangong clan and the Great Guardian were fighting fiercely, causing the sky to darken. On the other side of the battlefield, it was naturally near the Billow Domain Chief's manor. Within the ceiling formation, the disciples of the 5 clans were still risking their lives to resist the encirclement of the God Execution Army. They were bitterly holding on. After 15 minutes of fighting, the battle had reached its climax. The ceiling formation of 20,000 miles had suffered tens of thousands of ferocious attacks. It had long been riddled with holes, and many cracks had appeared. The disciples of the 5 clans were all excited. They thought that they would be able to destroy the ceiling formation if they could hold on for a while longer. When the ceiling formation was broken, their strength would return to normal and they would be able to break out of the encirclement. However, in the previous 15 minutes of fighting, the disciples of the 5 clans had suffered heavy casualties. There were originally more than 5,500 people. Now, there were only about 4,800 people left. More than 700 people had died in the battle. Most of their corpses were smashed into pieces. They died without a complete corpse. Among the 4,800 people who were still alive, more than 1,000 people had suffered light or heavy injuries. Of course, the 3,000 God Slayer did not have it easy either. They had also lost more than 400 people. They had all died in the chaotic battle. Another 300 people were injured. Their fighting strength had been greatly reduced. Fortunately, they had the help of the ceiling formation. Their losses were still considered better than the 5 clans. If it wasn't for this ceiling formation, they probably wouldn't be able to gain the slightest bit of advantage against more than 5,000 clan disciples with more than 3,000 of them. In addition, the number of God King experts of the 5 clans had reached 100. Although the average strength of these 100 God King experts was not as good as the 30 people of the God Slayer. Among these 100 people, there were a large number of intermediate God Kings and some lower God Kings. On the other hand, the 30 God Kings of the God Slayer were all above the 5th level of the God King realm. However, the 5 clans had an absolute advantage in terms of the number of God Kings. Even if their individual strength was lower, 2 or 3 of them could besiege one opponent. As a result, the God Kings led by the second protector did not manage to gain any advantage at all from the start of the battle. If the battle had continued for another 15 minutes, the sealing array would have been broken. At that time, the situation of the 2 protectors and the God Kings would be very dangerous. While the 2 sides were fighting, the second guardian was constantly observing the battlefield tens of thousands of miles away, paying attention to the first guardian's battle situation. He had been looking forward to seeing the great guardian deal with the Nangong clan as soon as possible and come back to help. Otherwise, with just him, over 30 godly kings, and 3,000 godly lords, they might not be able to defeat the 5 clans. The great enforcer was leading over 1,000 God Slayer subordinates to besiege the Nangong clan. While fighting, the great protector was also paying attention to the battle in the domain chief's mansion. Of course, he knew that the 2 protectors and the 3,000 God Slayer could only trap the 5 clans. It was very difficult to wipe them out. Even with the help of the sealing formation, it was impossible to do so. Therefore, he had to kill the members of the Nangong clan as soon as possible before rushing back to help the second guardian. This made him anxious. He kept urging the God Slayer subordinates to speed up the attack and kill the Nangong clan at all costs. However, the 1,000 members of the Nangong clan were very united. They cooperated very well and their willpower was incomparably tenacious. In order to survive, they exploded with a strong desire to survive and burst out with all their potential. It was no exaggeration to say that they were sparing no expense, using all their means and trump cards to resist the encirclement of the Great Protector and the God Slayer. For example, Nangong Nihuang, a few elders, and many deacons were severely injured. Their robes and hair were soaked in blood. However, it was as if they did not know pain and fatigue. They still fought tenaciously and erupted with powerful strength. As time passed, the casualties on both sides increased. Although the Nangong clan's casualties were greater, the God Slayer did not have it easy either. The ratio of casualties on both sides was about 6 to 10. In other words, for every 6 God Slayer deaths, 10 members of the Nangong clan would die. Based on this ratio, the Nangong clan would be killed sooner or later. However, the Great Protector was not confident and did not know when he would be able to achieve this goal. It could be an hour later, or it could be 4 hours later. Of course, even if he killed all the members of the Nangong clan, the God Slayer under his command would suffer heavy casualties. About 400 to 500 people would survive. At that time, he would bring those 400 to 500 people to support the second protector. Would he be able to kill all the members of the 5 clans? Thinking of this, the Great Protector felt a little uneasy and a little vexed. Before we set off, the Imperial Tutor vowed that with me and the second protector leading 50 God Kings and 5,000 Sir Gods, it would be enough to destroy the Southern Army. However, it seems that the Imperial Tutor has underestimated the combat power of the Southern Army. The situation of the Southern Army was just as the Imperial Tutor had predicted. There were some internal conflicts and disagreements. The leaders of the 5 clans were obviously not willing to accept Nangong Buhua's command. However, they have more than 10,000 years of history and their combat power is not to be underestimated. If I had known earlier, I would have insisted on my own opinion and asked the Imperial Tutor to deploy 2,000 Sir Gods and 30 God Kings. Thinking of the conversation he had with the imperial tutor before he set off, he only felt regret. However, it was too late to say anything now. The Great Protector could only use another trump card to deal with the Nangong clan as soon as possible. Heaven Transformation Talisman. The Great Protector bellowed as he formed a seal with both hands and took out 12 colorful light balls. Swish. 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 The 12 colorful light balls revolved around him and shuttled back and forth as fast as lightning. Upon closer inspection, one could see that there was a god talisman in each of the light balls. They were either golden, crimson, icy blue, or dark green. The god talisman was not big, but it was exquisitely made and looked very exquisite. There were at least 3,000 patterns on the palm-sized god talisman. It contained dozens of array changes and could draw the god power of heaven and earth within tens of thousands of miles. This set of heaven transformation talismans was a divine item that the imperial tutor had spent 10 years and countless precious treasures to make. Each god talisman was a superior king-level talisman. However, when the 12 god talismans were combined, they could unleash the power of a superior king-level divine item. Of course, these 12 heaven transformation talismans were one-time consumables and would be gone after they were used. The imperial tutor had kept them for more than 500 years after he gave them to the Great Protector as a reward. He would not use them unless it was a matter of life and death. However, tonight's situation was special. The mission he was shouldering was too sacred. He had no choice but to sacrifice this set of heaven transformation talismans in order to complete the mission safely. The Great Protector was expressionless as he looked sharply at Nangong Buhua, Nangong Nihuang, and the other elders. He grinned and revealed a sinister sneer. Go to hell, you traitors. Chapter 41-25. The Great Protector roared in a loud voice, and a murderous aura burst out from his body. At the same time, he formed a seal with both hands and shot out the 12 heaven transformation talismans with all his might. Swoosh! 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 The 12 palm-sized talismans expanded to the size of a mountain and burned with divine flames. They shone with the brilliance of the sun and streaked across the sky at lightning speed. They fell like the sun and smashed towards Nangong Buhua, Nangong Nihuang, and the others. The Great Guardian's goal was clear. He wanted to kill Nangong Buhua, Nangong Nihuang, and the others as soon as possible. It would be easier to kill these experts first and then deal with the disciples of the Nangong clan. Without the protection of Nangong Buhua and the other divine kings, the combat power of the 1,000 disciples of the Nangong clan was not strong. At least, in the eyes of the Great Guardian, they were ants that could be killed. The 12 huge, scorching suns were about to engulf Nangong Buhua and the others with destructive power. At this critical moment, the expressions of Nangong Buhua, Nangong Nihuang, and the others changed drastically. Their eyes were filled with horror. They knew very well what would happen when the 12 mountain-like talismans came crashing down. Many of the elders were filled with fear, and their eyes were filled with despair. However, they did not give up resisting. They used their trump cards and even forbidden secret skills to unleash their strongest combat power to form a defensive shield. Even the 1,000 disciples of the Nangong clan burned their vitality and lifespan to increase their combat power by 2 or 3 times. They worked together to cast spells to resist the talismans. Regardless of whether they could block the attack of the 12 talismans, at least they gave it their all and fought with their lives. The disciples of the Nangong clan showed amazing unity and willpower at this moment. Then, the most shocking and unforgettable thing happened. The battleship that had been fighting in the sky was already damaged and tattered. Even though it had used up 80% of its stored resources in the previous battle, it had no intention of retreating and continued to fight. The 2 divine kings and 20 Sir gods who stayed behind to control the battleship were admirably tenacious. At this moment, when they saw the 12 talismans crashing down, they did not hesitate to control the battleship to collide with the talismans. Under their control, the battleship spewed out 5 colored flames and unleashed its last bit of power. Its posture was like a moth darting into a flame. With the determination to die, it collided head-on with the divine talismans. This scene was so shocking, so tragic, and so resolute. Not only were the people of the Nangong clan full of admiration, many people were in tears. Even many of the soldiers of the God Punishment Army were shocked and in disbelief. They could not believe that in this cold and selfish world, there would be someone who would sacrifice themselves without hesitation just to fight for a chance to survive for their companions. Even though they were enemies, it did not stop them from admiring them. Boom! Boom boom boom! In the next moment, the gigantic divine warship collided with 4 divine talismans in a row, causing an earth-shattering explosion that shook the 9 heavens. The 4 sun-like divine talismans exploded with a loud rumble. Endless flames burst forth and swept across the sky for 100,000 miles. The battleship was also blasted to pieces, turning into billions of pieces in a shocking explosion that scattered between heaven and earth. The 2 divine kings and 20 Sir gods who were controlling the battleship were naturally smashed into pieces. However, their sacrifice successfully blocked the 4 divine talismans. Even though the 4 divine talismans exploded and unleashed destructive power, the timing of the explosion were too late. However, the location and timing of their explosions were not right. The terrifying 5-colored flames spread high in the sky, but did not affect the disciples of the Nangong clan much. At least, the 4 divine talismans did not achieve the expected effect and only affected 100 or so disciples of the Nangong clan. More than 20 of them were killed and the rest were injured. Their lives were not in danger. The other 8 divine talismans that were as large as mountains hit the defensive shield formed by Nangong Buhua, Nangong Nihuang, the elders, and the deacons. The thick and heavy 5-colored light shield within 1,000 miles was directly smashed into pieces and splashed everywhere. The 8 divine talismans also exploded with flames that covered the sky and flooded an area of tens of thousands of miles. All the mountains and rivers in the area were turned into ashes and scorched ruins in the 5-colored flames. Originally, such a destructive 5-colored flame could kill more than 80% of the Nangong clan's over 1,000 people. However, the 1,000 or so disciples of the Nangong clan did their best to form a defensive shield. This was equivalent to the 3rd line of defense and barrier of the Nangong clan. The first was the battleship and the second was the shield formed by Nangong Buhua and the others. However, more than 80% of the 5-colored flames' power was neutralized. Even though the flames engulfed the disciples of the Nangong clan, there were not many casualties. Only 100 or so disciples of the Nangong clan were killed and 200 or so were injured. This result was far from what the Great Guardian had expected. When the Great Guardian saw that Nangong Buhua and the others were still intact, as well as the thousands of Nangong clan members, he was so angry that his face turned green and his eyes turned red. Damn it! The Great Guardian took out the heavenly talisman reluctantly, but this was the result. How could he be satisfied? However, he did not have a similar trump card or divine item anymore. No matter how angry he was, he could only lead the God Slayer under his command to fight the Nangong clan and gradually reduce their numbers. It was unrealistic to think that he could kill Nangong Buhua and the others quickly through other means. The explosion of the 12 heavenly talismans was indeed terrifying. The area within 100,000 miles was flattened and turned into ruins. The entire secret realm was shaking. The space was shattered and cracks appeared in the void. 80,000 miles away, the battlefield above the Surge Domain Chief's mansion was also affected by the 5-colored flames. The ceiling array that was already full of cracks and on the verge of collapse collapsed on the spot. When the array dissipated, the disciples of the 5 clans were elated. They cheered excitedly and smiled with success. After the array collapsed, the pressure on them was greatly reduced, and their combat power returned to normal. Now, with their advantage in numbers, they could definitely kill the two great guardians and the 3,000 god slayer. However, just as the disciples of the 5 clans were filled with joy, divine light shot up from all directions. Swoosh! In the blink of an eye, divine light gathered in the sky and formed another sealing array with a radius of 30,000 miles. Seeing this scene, the disciples of the 5 clans were stunned. Everyone was filled with anger. Chapter 41-26. Didn't we just break one layer of the seal array? Why is there another layer? Damn those insidious old bastards. They set up 2 layers of the seal array. Damn it. I thought we were out of trouble. I didn't expect to come again. Since those 2 white-haired old bastards are so insidious, they probably set up a 3rd layer of the seal array. How long would it take to set up such an array? Unless they set up an ambush 5 or 6 days in advance, they couldn't have set up 3 layers of the seal array. In other words, if we break the 2nd layer of the seal array, we'll be out of trouble. The disciples of the 5 clans couldn't help but curse and discuss when they saw the 2nd seal array. However, no matter how angry they were, it was useless. They could only continue to fight and attack the seal array above their heads. The scene from before played out again. Within a radius of 30,000 miles, divine light was still flickering. All kinds of wind, fire, and lightning covered the sky. As time went by, the number of people on both sides continued to decrease. The domain chief's mansion beneath their feet had long been destroyed in the great battle and had been reduced to ruins. Of course, the hundreds of palaces and mansions were destroyed, but neither side felt sorry. Only the Ripple domain master, who was imprisoned, would feel heartache when he saw his 1,000 years of hard work and foundation turn into nothing. On the other side, the battle between the Nangong clan and the Great Guardian was still going on. The number of casualties on both sides kept increasing, but the ratio was still 6 to 10. Overall, the number of casualties didn't increase quickly. The Nangong clan's cohesiveness and tenacity were beyond expectations. The Great Guardian estimated that it would take at least 4 hours to kill everyone in the Nangong clan. However, the 2nd Guardian and the 3,000 God Slayer wouldn't be able to hold on for 4 hours. At that time, the battle situation would definitely change. It might even be reversed. Half an hour ago. At the northern border of the Ripple domain. The God-slaying battleship streaked across the sky like a bolt of lightning, flying toward the south at the fastest speed. Usually, when Ji Tianqing traveled on the God-slaying battleship, the battleship would hide its flames and aura. However, at this moment, in order to make the battleship reach its maximum speed, Bai Long didn't waste his divine power on hiding his tracks. After all, the God-slaying battleship had been operating at its limit. Every hour, it would consume resources worth billions of God stones. So far, in less than a day, the God Slayer battleship had already consumed 80 billion resources. He had paid such a huge price just to get to the Rippling Waves domain as soon as possible. In the cockpit of the battleship, the White Dragon was still focused on controlling the array formation of the divine ship. Ji Tianqing sat cross-legged on a jade couch, his expression calm as he closed his eyes and rested. Originally, no matter how fast the God-slaying battleship was, it was impossible for it to cross 7 regions in a single day and arrive at the border of the Rippling region. However, Ji Tianqing was flexible and could find the fastest way. The Rebel Alliance had taken over all the domains from his domain to the Wavy Billow domain. The domain lords of these domains had all surrendered to the Rebel Alliance. As such, Ji Tianqing ordered the various domain lords along the way to give him the authority to use the teleportation divine array. Every time he entered a region, he would arrive at a certain empire in the north of the region through a teleportation divine formation and quickly arrive at a certain place in the south of the region. Usually, a teleportation array could help him travel from tens of millions of miles to hundreds of millions of miles. This was much faster than the god-slaying battleship. That was why he could create such a miracle and enter the rippling waves domain in less than a day. Unfortunately, the Rebel Alliance hadn't conquered the rippling waves domain yet. Ji Tianqing also couldn't use the teleportation array to quickly reach the center of the rippling waves domain from the northern border. The god-slaying battleship could only travel at full speed toward the rippling waves secret realm in the center of the region. Suddenly, a spiritual light flew from the sky and landed in front of Ji Tianqing. After the spiritual light dissipated, an exquisite communication jade slip was revealed. Seeing this jade slip, Ji Tianqing frowned and a light flashed in his eyes. This was the jade slip he had left for Nangong Buhua. It was specially used to report urgent and important matters. When he saw this jade slip, he guessed that something must have happened to the Southern Army. Swoosh! He quickly picked up the jade slip and used his divine sense to read the message inside. Just as he expected. Nangong Buhua's slightly hoarse and anxious voice immediately sounded in his mind. Alliance Master, we were ambushed in the rippling waves secret realm and are in a critical situation. I'm afraid we won't be able to escape unscathed. The rippling waves domain lord is imprisoned and the 5,000 soldiers who ambushed us are led by the first guardian and second guardian of the Azura Divine Palace. This is the Imperial Tutor's scheme. Alliance Master, you must be careful. Although it was a distressed jade slip, Nangong Buhua only reported the situation and didn't ask for help. In fact, knowing that he couldn't escape unscathed, he was more worried about Ji Tianqing's safety. It's just as I expected. Ji Tianqing put away the jade slip and muttered in a low voice with a frown. Previously, he had been seized by a sudden impulse and had had so many bad premonitions and a strong sense of danger. Before he could verify it, he couldn't completely believe it. He hoped that his premonition was wrong. But reality proved that his prediction was right. This made him understand one thing. It seems that although I can't get the divine power of merit rewarded by the heavenly way, I have some kind of connection with the heavenly way. This kind of premonition can actually predict danger in advance. It's really mysterious. At this time, White Dragon turned his head and asked, Master, what happened? Ji Tianqing replied calmly, as I expected, the Emperor's preceptor sent a group of 5,000 elite soldiers to set up a trap in the secret realm of waves, ambushing the Southern Army. White Dragon was instantly filled with worry and asked with concern, what's the situation now? Did the Southern Army escape the siege? How are the casualties? Ji Tianqing shook his head and said, Nangong Buhua only sent this message and it was hurried and vague. It wasn't detailed enough. This means that they are in a very dangerous situation and must be fighting a fierce battle. The Imperial Tutor has been planning this for a long time and the 5,000 elite soldiers are waiting for the enemy to arrive. The Southern Army must have suffered heavy casualties. White Dragon became more and more worried and asked bitterly, but the god-slaying battleship speed has increased to the limit. What should we do? Don't panic. Ji Tianqing waved his hand and said, just continue to move forward at full speed. We should reach the rippling waves secret realm in 2 hours. Although the Southern Army has been ambushed and will suffer heavy casualties, they are still ancient clans. However, they were the 6 great ancient clans after all, and had over 6,000 elite experts and experts. No matter how fierce the enemy is, they can't destroy the Southern Army in such a short time. I believe that Nangong Buhua and the other clan leaders can hold on for 2 hours and wait for my rescue. Chapter 41-27. Ji Tianqing had considered this problem when arranging the members of the Southern Army. The reason why he had the 6 clans form the Southern Army was to prevent the Imperial Tutor from splitting up and attacking the 2 armies one by one. Although the Southern Army was not harmonious and there would be some disagreements between the 6 clans. This was all within his expectations and could be controlled. He believed that with Nangong Buhua's strength and attitude, he would eventually solve this problem. At the same time, Ji Tianqing also maintained a corresponding affirmation and trust in the Southern Army's combat power. No matter how disharmonious the 6 clans were, they were all ancient inheritances with 30,000 years of history. Even if they were ambushed by more than 5,000 God Slayer, they would not be completely defeated and could at least hold on for a long time. Because of this, although he was worried, he was not as worried as he was. The real situation on the battlefield was basically the same as Ji Tianqing's prediction. The battle on the 2 battlefields was still going on, and the Nangong clan, which had suffered heavy casualties, was still struggling to hold on. There were only about 4,000 people left in the 5 clans, and they were still desperately fighting back in the ceiling array, wildly attacking the defensive light shield. The second Guardian and the God Slayer under his command were also in a tense state, and they were attacking the 5 clans' disciples with all their might. Tens of thousands of divine light shadows still covered the sky. Earth-shattering collisions and explosions were constantly heard, reverberating in the heavens and the earth. The casualties on both sides were constantly increasing, and the surviving soldiers were also riddled with scars, and their strength was constantly weakening. But no one would retreat or give up, and they vowed to fight until the end. The God Slayer had spent so much time and effort to complete this ambush, and no matter what, they would swallow the Southern Army. Even if they were completely wiped out, they would perish together with the Southern Army. This was their mission. As for the Southern Army, the Nangong clan was determined to break out of the encirclement. If there was a chance to rescue the other 5 clans, they would naturally join up with them and escape the secret realm together. If their casualties were too heavy, they could only protect themselves first. At least, the Southern Army could not be completely wiped out. Because the Nangong clan's casualties were too heavy, the surviving disciples were determined to die and treated this battle as the last battle of their lives. Therefore, they erupted with unprecedented combat power, and they were unusually tenacious. Especially Nangong Buhua, Nangong Nihuang, and a few elders, they were bathed in blood and extremely tenacious. Even the Great Guardian was helpless and could only fight steadily and surely. He suddenly felt somewhat regretful. If he had known that the Southern Army's combat power was so strong, he would not have forcefully imprisoned the Wavy God Domain's leader and thousands of her subordinates when he had just entered the Wavy secret realm. The Wavy Zone Master's forces were weak, with only a little over 1,000 monarchs and a few god kings under her command. Great Lords Lord of the God Slayers as forces. God Slayers as had. The God Slayer S Slayer had God Slayers Domain Slayers as Goddess and this S's. In that case, the soldiers under the Domain Master's command could be used as cannon fodder. God slaying of the God Slayer of the God. Was God die, the God gods. The be more of them. Time passed quietly. Half an hour passed quickly. More than half of the Nangong clan's 1,000 people had been killed or injured. Only about 600 people were left. Of the 1,800 God Slayer soldiers under the command of the Great Protector, only 1,200 remained. Tens of thousands of miles away, the battle near the Domain Chief's mansion was also very fierce. Of the 5,000 people from the 5 clans, there were only about 4,200 people left. Of the 3,200 God Slayer subordinates under the Second Protector, more than 900 were killed or injured. Only 2,200 remained. The fierce battle between the 2 battlefields sent out destructive shockwaves that destroyed everything within a radius of 100,000 miles. Even the spatial barrier of the secret realm had been shattered. Numerous void cracks and pitch-black holes had appeared. Finally, the second seal was broken by the disciples of the 5 clans. Along with a series of cracking noises, the huge defensive light screen fell apart, turning into pieces that scattered all over the ruins. This time, the disciples of the 5 clans had learned their lesson. Even when they saw the seal being broken, they didn't cheer excitedly, nor did they look relieved. With the previous lesson, no one dared to be excited. They were all on guard and guessing whether the God Slayer had a backup plan or whether he had set up a third seal. Fortunately, as many Divine King experts had analyzed, the God Slayer didn't have enough time. The God Slayer didn't have much time. He had already done his best to set up 2 seals in a hurry. As for the third seal, it was impossible to complete it. The third layer of the formation that everyone expected did not appear. The second protector also quickly retreated with his 2,200 subordinates. Seeing this, the 5 clans' patriarchs and elders all hesitated. They looked at each other and hurriedly communicated with each other. They didn't act rashly. If it were in the past, seeing the second protector retreating with the God Slayer, they would have pounced on him and launched a counterattack. However, they had learned their lesson and wouldn't act rashly again. It looks like the God Slayer didn't have time to set up the third seal. That might not be the case. Don't forget the lesson from before. It's better to be cautious. The second protector and those God Slayer retreated. They might be trying to numb our minds and make us lower our guard, luring us into another trap. Don't think too much. Everything within 100,000 miles has been razed to the ground and turned into ruins. If they had set up an ambush, it would have been activated or even destroyed by the aftermath of the battle. That makes sense. Then what are we waiting for? Let's take advantage of the victory and kill those bastards. We have to fight back. We can't let those bastards escape. Everyone, look. The Nangong clan has suffered heavy casualties. If we don't go and support them as soon as possible, I'm afraid they'll be completely wiped out. Even if the Nangong clan is completely wiped out. Forget it. We're a whole, after all. We're all part of the Rebel Alliance's Southern Army. We share honor and disgrace. We can't just stand by and watch them die. That's right. Even if we're not on good terms with the Nangong clan, Nangong Buhua has done his duty. He reminded us twice before. If the Nangong clan is completely wiped out, we won't be able to face the alliance leader. Let's put aside our prejudices and work together. The 5 clans' patriarchs and elders discussed for a while and quickly reached a consensus. They spread out and formed a formation to chase after the second protector and the God Slayer. They wanted to defeat them as soon as possible. Then, they would go and support the Nangong clan. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.